into session. If you could do the roll call, Dwayne.
Suarez. Here. Cohen. Here. Maniscalco. Here. Capine. Present. Miranda. Here. Vieira.
Here.
And Reddick's absent.
Okay. I wanted to acknowledge a memo request by Councilman Suarez requesting that the tree ordinance item be moved from the last item to number 2. I had spoken with Ms. Kurt about that, and she had suggested that we, since it was noticed at 6 o'clock, to move it to 6, which could make it 3 or 4, but moved up nevertheless. Is that amenable? Thank you, sir. Okay. First, we begin at 5:30 for someone from the administration on air quality.
Good evening, Council. I'm Osea Wynn from the Department of Logistics and Asset Management, and I was asked to come in to report on you about the status of the air quality here in Old City Hall, as well as the relocation timeline for staff and council meetings, and finally the work being done on the building. I will report on both the air quality and the work that's being done, and Mike Chukrin from the Contract Administration Department will report on the relocation time, on the timeline piece. In terms of the status of the indoor air quality, I'm going to start by giving a timeline of what has happened over the last several years. In January of 2017, the indoor air quality testing was conducted due to dust being in the building. If you recall, during that time, we were doing the renovation of the envelope of the building, and we were getting complaints for both dust and noise. And that's when we did the first indoor air quality testing. We continually monitored the air quality from January until April of 2017, and the reports came back that there were no elevated reports or elevated issues of air quality. There were no particulates in the air that will be of concern other than the dust at that time. In January 2018, we were at the near the completion of the exterior renovation of the building, and an indoor air quality test was performed at that time to detect any significant changes to the air qualities, and again, there were no concentrations or changes of the air quality. In March of 2018, the project was completed, and in June, we conducted a follow-up testing to the whole building, and we did this for 2 reasons. First, we wanted to do a before and after of what had occurred prior to the testing, and then compare it to the results of where we were at that point in time. And then the second reason was that we needed data since we were installing 3 fresh air units or fresh air handlers. We needed to see where we were in terms of the pressure in the building. The air handlers were installed to create a positive pressure in the building to assist with humidity control and to keep the moisture out. At that point in time, there were elevated results detected. Now, I want to make sure that we understand that the elevated results were results that were higher than the ones that were previously detected. However, they were not elevated to the point to exceeding industry standard thresholds of particulates in the air.
Can I ask a question, Chair?
Yes, sir.
So what do you think the reason for the elevated numbers are? And this is elevated number of particulates in the air, or?
Particulates in the air, and then we did spot sampling.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those. What we thought about in terms of what could possibly cause this is that we did notice there were moisture coming into the building. We've noticed on more than one occasions that there are windows that are up in certain areas of the building, mm-hmm. and that causes the moisture and rain or whatever to come in, and it settles in. at that point in time, that's the only thing that we could come up with in terms of what could have possibly caused the elevated results.
Did you know that there was a huge amount of water that was left in Vieira's, Mr. Vieira's, excuse me, office, soaked through the rug and everything else that came in, and it wasn't because the window was open?
No, sir, I was not aware of that.
You weren't
Yes.
aware of that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I think you could be a testament to
Yeah.
witness. You could. It
The-
was very wet in his office.
Okay.
There was, yeah, it was something, water started coming up from the floor and there was cracking from the floor. It was not cracking like structural cracking, electrical noises. But probably maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah, he made
Oh,
a decision not to touch any electrical items while his feet were soaked in water, which I thought was a good decision on
A
your
rare
part.
good decision on my end.
Yeah.
So that was 4 or 5 weeks ago?
Months.
Oh, months ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's just kind of progress up to that
Yes,
point to
ma'am.
let you know what we've done.
And Councilwoman Capeen?
Right, but the answer is that you don't know why there was additional or higher levels of particulates.
No, sir, we don't.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
We just
And-
know that we were testing.
And if
we
I
did.
may, Councilwoman Capeen had a comment.
High level, medium, low? What is the industry standard? When you said it
So-
wasn't higher than industry standard.
Right, so and I don't have what the number is, but if, let's say, the industry standard is 50 particulates per square inch or whatever, we were less than what that standard
What
was.
were we, 49? What
That's
what
what-
was, okay, that number needs to be, I'd like to know that number.
Yes,
Because I'll
ma'am.
tell you something. Years ago, I flew to Europe on an airline, I'm not gonna talk about coach, and I'm 5'4", and my knees were hitting the seat in front of me, okay? The whole trip. I wrote the airline, and I said, sardines travel better than this. They wrote back, that's the industry standard. So every time I hear industry standard, my ears perk up.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
those numbers I'd like to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. So we could continue to conduct the testing just to see if there were any significant changes detected. In March of 2018, the exterior project ended, and as I just mentioned, that we continued with the testing because we were installing the fresh air units. When we found that there were elevated areas or elevated amounts, we did have a licensed contractor to come in and to remediate the whole area, remediate every area. And then we did the testing afterwards. And after we did the testing, we have not found any additional increase in particulates or anything like that in the building.
If I could, Chair, I apologize. So I'm trying to get the timeline right.
Yes,
So
sir.
March 2018
Yes.
was when it was completed, and June 2018 is when you had a higher level of particulates. Then you hired a mediation firm after June 2018 to come in, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So when did you bring in the licensed mitigation specialist?
So, yeah, the licensed mitigation specialist came in after we had that final testing done.
I mean, but
Oh.
was it in July?
Oh,
Was
no,
it?
no, yeah, so it was in June, it was immediately after.
Okay,
Yeah, it was immediately after.
thank you.
And what we have done is we continue the testing to make sure that there were no elevated levels of particulates, and we've not had any elevated levels.
How long was the testing? Did you do it for the month of June? Did you do it in August?
We started in June, and then we test quarterly afterwards. So every 3 months, we test to see if there are elevated results.
So you did June, and then you did September,
Then we did December,
and then you did December?
and the
Okay.
next test will be conducted next week.
Okay.
So every 3 months, we do the scheduled testing. So the next, so that's where we are in terms, in addition to that, we do clean the air handlers monthly. So we go and clean all of those out monthly, just as a precautionary measure. The next area or the thing you wanted us to report on was what's the status of the upcoming projects. The complete renovation of Old City Hall has always been planned to be conducted in 3 phases. The first phase was the window replacement. We did that. The second phase was the exterior envelope. And now the third phase that we're planning for is the upgrades to the electrical system, the mechanical system, and to the plumbing. Now, typically, what we would have done was done the window replacement and then upgraded the electrical, mechanical, and the plumbing. But also, you may recall that we had things falling off the building. And so due to safety, not things, the balustrades and parts falling off the building, but due to safety measures, we decided to switch the order to do the envelope next, and now we're at the part of doing the phase report for the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. And I will have Mike Chuckman to come and talk about those next steps in terms of timelines of when we expect to get those done.
If I could,
And Councilman
Yes,
Suarez.
sure.
I apologize again. You just read the report. Do you have a copy of the report? Or?
No, I do, but these are my notes.
Those are your notes, okay. Yeah, it would probably been good to have, it's easier than me asking you questions about timeline if we had
Okay.
something in front of us to know exactly what you're doing. You might want to maybe make a
make
copy
it
of that,
available.
maybe have somebody from staff make a copy and give it all to us so that we all
Okay.
got it. I mean, I'm trying to do it by memory and writing down, but it
Okay,
might be a
I can
good
do
idea.
that.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
And if I may, were there any findings of mold or
I'm sorry, I can hardly hear.
mold? Any
Any
findings?
findings of mold? So, yes, so what they did find when they did the testing, that there were both viable and non-viable levels of mold. And what that means is that there were certain areas where there are minute levels of dead mold spores and live mold spores as well. The live mold spores were the ones that we typically have when, like mold in your home or just for moisture from living in Florida. So we did have those at those minute levels.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening, Council. Mike Chuckran, Contract Administration Department. I want to just go over a notional timeline for the Phase 3 portion of the work that's going to be done in Old City Hall. So the request for qualifications for Phase 3 for the Old City Hall Improvement Design Build Project, the request for qualifications will be posted the end of this month. So from that stage on, at end of April or end of March, we'll look to do shortlisting the firms that present. Then we'll shortlist them and have presentations looking at a mid-June timeframe, mid-June of 2019. After the mayor makes his selection of the firm, we expect to see that in front of City Council in late August of 2019. And subsequently, about a month after that, in late September, we'll start the notice to proceed to the selected firm to begin the design process. So we anticipate the design to take about 7 months for design and development of the guaranteed maximum price. And we expect to bring that to City Council early May of 2020. And then early June of 2020, we expect notice to proceed to begin construction of that Phase 3 portion. So as far as any relocation, we don't have any details of that. We know that at this point, it will be beyond June of 2020. And then we'll get some more details on how that would be phased.
Councilman Cohen.
So my understanding is that the reason that this issue came up is because there were concerns about the air quality in the building and whether or not people were going to need to be moving out. And while I heard that there was nothing related to particulates, there was this comment made about mold. And is there a mold problem in the building that is?
May I? When you're
Yeah,
done?
go ahead.
Okay. Yes, there's a mold problem because in our office, they came in and the paint on the wall, the mold was coming and peeling the paint off the wall. And they came in, scraped it, whatever they did, and we had it in 4 places like that. And it was like that forever, and we complained about it, and nobody did anything till now. Nothing. So, yes, there is a problem with mold, I would say.
So the Phase 3, Mike, on the phase
Yes.
3, that is the electrical, what is the electrical, the plumbing?
HVAC, the electrical and plumbing.
Okay, AC, electrical, and plumbing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, and let me ask you a question. And when we're talking about contracts, when we're dealing with this kind of construction, it is a specialized kind of, can you hear me? You're,
can
you're,
hear you better
you're
now.
stretching,
Yes.
Because I can speak a lot louder,
Okay,
okay?
I
I
can
just
hear
want to
you
make
now.
sure you're okay. So, it's a specialized type of construction because of the age of the building, the kind of construction materials that are used. You know, there's lots of nooks and crannies and other things that are part of this. My guess is, based on some of the anecdotal evidence that we have, not necessarily the mitigation, excuse me, not based on the air quality studies that have been done, that we may have trapped some old mold in here or some live spores in here after we sealed the building. That's a guess of mine, because I'm not an expert on building or anything else, but the proof's in the pudding. We just mentioned about Mr. Vieira's office that was soaked through, okay? And then also Ms. Capin's office, which has got growing mold. And I will say, in my office too, we had kind of a traveling mold problem too. Now, that may be in any other part of the building. And again, you know, when you're talking about a building this old, when you're looking at what we had to do, the kind of work, it's very delicate, very careful. We, you know, as you know, we left the building for a while, or at least left our floor to work out of other spots and other buildings. It becomes an issue as to whether or not we actually sealed the building properly, or we sealed it properly, but we sealed in the bad stuff. And that's what I'm getting at. I think that we may have an issue there. And as part of the contract that was first put in place, is there a way that that contractor either guarantees or makes sure that before he can be certified of completing the job, that there's no issues concerning these type of things like air quality and mold and things like that? I'm not sure what the contract says.
No, for the exterior portion of the work that was done here, that was just that as an architectural restoration of the exterior of the facility. Now, there were lots of gaps and holes in this building, it being as old as it was, and
Sure.
So it was sealed up, but there was no exterior sealant applied to the building. It still it's porous enough for breathing, and that's how these buildings were designed back in 1915, and
Right.
that was the purpose of our exterior renovation project, was to restore it to the original 1915 look.
So that begs the question then, if we're restoring it back to 1915 level, and we might have some issues with mold or with other kind of particulates that are in the air, how do we solve that problem, making it okay for modern standards, but still keeping the exterior, you know, as nice and beautiful as it is? So I think the question is that part of the contract that we entered into in order to refurbish the building? Because you want the outside to look great, which it does, looks terrific. But if the inside, for some reason, we've either trapped something or something has not been changed to make it a functional building so we don't have these issues, is there something contractually that says that they have to maintain either a higher standard or a different standard, or maybe it has nothing in the contract? I don't know.
No, sir, there was nothing in the contract regarding air quality inside the building. What they did is they definitely improved on it by sealing the building up, is what they did. Part of this Phase 3 portion of it includes an exterior sealant. Now, the reason that wasn't part of the original exterior, they looked at it, they discussed it to exterior seal, but this is a national landmark building, and there are some concerns of sealant being applied
Right.
that causes discoloration over time. But it sounds like at this point they believe they found there's a product out there that can be applied that will seal the building, and we have that as part of the scope in this Phase 3 portion.
Okay.
So that, along with sealing the building, along with the rest of the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, should complete the.
So it's a second sealant that's going to be put onto
No, sir, there was no sealant
No,
applied.
No, I mean, okay, let's get our terminology right. You said that the building had been sealed originally.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so explain to me what sealing the
Okay,
building
so-
the first time was.
So if you remember back in the original portion of the building, the mortar joints, or it's cracking between there.
okay.
So that's what I mean, there's air gaps and things moving in. That has all been sealed with the original mortar and brick of the look of the building.
And I'll ask you
And-
one last question along these lines. So is there anything that is done interiorly to seal, to make sure that we don't have some of the moisture and other particulates that might come from the outside that might cause some issues for people inside here? Is that what this Phase 3 is going to handle?
Yes, sir, there's a portion of that in Phase 3 which will basically take the casings of the windows off and apply sealant around the windows as well. So, and that's your bulk of your concern of moisture coming in is through the windows. So that is also included in part of Phase 3.
Yeah, because it's not just moisture. I'm talking gallons. That's the issue. So, I mean, I think we need to figure that out. So, thank you, Chair.
Councilwoman Capeen.
Yes, I see here where it said the air handlers are cleaned monthly. They were not replaced, right? Because on here, Phase 3 says the air handlers were not replaced. Were they? Have they?
Not in the
Not this
original
time.
project.
Okay. Now, the other thing, when you bring it up, that we moved out, the only time we moved out was when the windows were being done, because we were in our offices when they were piling dust and banging on the walls, and stuff was falling from the ceiling. We were in our offices, how many months was that? Yeah, it happened in here. So all the stuff that was in there was falling on us. And I had a cough. I think, as a matter of fact, I saw a report that someone pulled for another agenda item last week, and on there is it has there printed on there. I'm coughing, and I said, "There's something in this building. It's really bothering me." And that was in 17, 18. When did we start? I gotta look at the date. The outside.
About 17.
17? So
Yeah.
I'm looking at it, and I think it said 2017. So as far back as 2 years ago, I was complaining about the air quality in here because it kept my eyes watered and I was coughing. It was in my sinuses, it was coughing. So, when you say they moved us out with the windows, not when they were banging on the walls, knocking everything down on us. So I want to make that clear. Also, I don't know if I need to make this a motion. We're going to be getting a full report back. Is that what Osea said? No? Because if we're getting a report back, I want to see those numbers that compare to. Okay. So do I need to make a motion that they come back with those numbers or the report, full
I think it's
report?
provided.
May.
Okay. Then I would like to make a motion that staff come back with a full report of the air quality test, all of them, and the numbers.
We have a motion by Councilman Capeen, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion.
March 21st on your staff reports next week.
That'll work.
Can you do that next week, the full report based on the numbers you were just talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? And one question, if I may, is City Council going to be relocated, or we don't have a timeline?
We
or-
believe there'll probably be some relocation. We're just unsure how it's, because once we get the teams in place, after they're selected, we'll have to see what their plan is. We anticipate this being a one-year construction effort. We don't know what we don't know at this point. We have to see what their plan is and how the design will lay out to see what the time frame will be for relocating people.
Rumor is it's going to be located in New Tampa. I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, it's Ybor City.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, members of council?
One quick question. Is legal department moving?
I'm sorry?
Is legal department moving because of construction or anything?
Right now?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of. That we're not doing any construction in the building right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So maybe when we do the tree thing, we can maybe have them come in. Do we? Let me address this. Apparently, we have a great many individuals in another room for the Davis Island matter, and there is no TV that is working. Any? Can we get what is that, an iPad and stream it? Okay. Well, we can kick that can down the road for the tree ordinance, but council.
Can I ask a question then, clerk? The television still working in the hallway down there? Nothing downstairs is working right now.
Welcome to the 80s.
Well, there is one working down by the information desk. Okay.
Okay, so we'll deal with that when we get there, I guess. And from what I'm told, even if we deal with the number 16 and everybody here for 16 leaves, that will not be enough room to hold, not nearly. Okay, well, we'll deal with that. Okay, we'll kick that can down the road for 15 minutes. We're going to move, since it is 6:05 right now, to item number 16. And any objection from city staff, council, or Mr. Shelby to moving it? I would assume not, but just making sure.
Thank you. Rebecca Kirk, Legal Department. I am here in lieu of Kristen Mora, who has been handling this for a long time at this point. She unfortunately is admitted into the hospital right now. She wanted me to let you know that she would have done anything to be here, and I can attest to that because I had to tell her to leave today. But I am here with the substitute ordinance. This is the substitute that is reflective of City Council's last motion to make the changes and send it over to the Planning Commission. This is a substitute, excuse me, because it was changed to add in the recommendation from the Planning Commission, which happened on Monday, to add the exhibit of the tree matrix, which is Exhibit A, which you've been talking about throughout this period of time. And there were some cross-references that were not originally caught. So there are no substantive changes. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble breathing as well. I'm sure it's nothing to do with the building.
Welcome to our world.
So this did go to the Planning Commission on Monday. It had a unanimous recommendation of approval. I was not at the Planning Commission, but I was advised that there were no objections at that time at the Planning Commission. It is for you for first reading, and it is appropriate to read it tonight if you feel that's appropriate. The second reading is your public hearing if it passes on first reading. And I am available if there are any questions, and Ms. Beck is also here if there are any technical questions.
Any questions from council?
Chair, if I could.
Yes, sir.
So, Ms. Kurt, there's no material changes to what we sent to the Planning Commission from our prior hearing concerning this. Is that correct?
That is correct. What was sent to the Planning Commission reflected the changes that City Council directed at your last meeting.
Okay.
And this is just to add in the exhibit to include the Planning Commission recommendation and to fix some cross-references that were not originally caught.
Okay. So some ministerial issues, nothing of any substance.
That is what I've been advised to represent to you today, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments?
No.
And there will be a full public hearing on this in the second reading.
That is correct.
Do we take public comments on this tonight?
You, City Council, you typically do not take public comment at your first reading. It is within your discretion to open it up, but that would be outside the norm of how you handle a first reading.
Any comments from council members on public comment? Okay. Okay, now this is a very long ordinance, and
I have a lot of wind.
you what?
I said I have a lot of wind if you want me to do it.
Okay,
Council,
Councilman.
and I apologize
ma'am.
for interrupting, but before you got started on the reading, I did just want to let you know that you do need to read the substitute. I didn't want to interrupt you once you got started, because apparently that was part of the cross-references.
Is the
that were
substitute
changed.
part of our agenda, or do you have it? Have it
It's
right
what
here?
I just handed out.
Got it. Okay. Chair, if you want me to
And
read
Ms.
it.
Kurt, if I may, I have a question. In the event that in second reading or tonight, which apparently not, we were to make any changes to this, any incremental small changes, how would that affect the timeline of this going forward before this council expires?
Second reading, second reading would become first reading.
Okay.
And then you could direct those changes between first and second reading, depending upon what they are, and assuming that they're not major substantive changes that would require it to go back to the planning commission. And I do also want to remind city council that you have already enacted ordinances that are, I believe, set to go, well, I know they're set to go into effect in April. I believe it's April 17th. I'm sorry if I'm off by a couple days, but that's what my memory says. So if nothing happens, then those ordinances would go into effect, which I don't believe addressed everything that city council has talked about, which this does, but I did want to let you know that. And if city council did want to open it up, it's within your discretion. It's just not typical practice.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready, Chair?
Yes, sir.
I present a substitute.
Oh, wait, if I may, Councilman
Yes,
Capeen?
no problem.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I present a substitute ordinance for first reading consideration, an ordinance of the City of Tampa, Florida, relating to comprehensive changes to the city's tree and landscaping regulations set forth in chapters 13, landscaping, tree removal, and site clearing, 16, parks and recreation, 19, property maintenance and structural standards, 22, streets and sidewalks, and 27, zoning and land development, repealing and reserving chapter 13, landscaping, tree removal, and site clearing, amending section 16-86, tree trust fund established, amending section 19-3, definitions, amending section 19-58, unlawful to allow a dangerous tree to remain on property, amending section 22-5, definitions, amending section 22-223, administrative authority, amending section 22-323.6, trees within or proximate to the public rights of way, amending section 27-7, area of coverage of chapter, creating section 27-20, planning districts, amending section 27-43, definitions, amending section 27-51, establishment of administrative officers, amending section 27-58, fees, amending section 27-60, alternative design exception, amending section 27-61, review, amending section 27-79, powers and duties, amending section 27-81, administration, notice public hearing, decision, amending section 27-96, variance, authority, application, notice criteria, decision, stay, denial, review, expiration of variance, amending section 27-114, variance authority, application, public notice, criteria, decision, stay, denial, review, expiration of variance, amending section 27-132, regulations governing individual special uses, amending section 27-139, general requirements, amending section 27-147, amendment initiation, amending section 27-148, procedure for amendment application, amending section 27-151, comprehensive review of land development code. Excuse me, hang on a second. Yeah, it seems easy from your side. Amending section 27-156, official schedule of district regulations, amending section 27-177, historic district established, amending section 27-178, alternative parking requirements, amending section 27-185.1, off-street surface parking design standards, amending section 27-198, official schedule of permitted principal, accessory, and special uses, amending section 27-211.13, landscaping, amending section 27-212.6, landscaping, tree planting, screening, amending section 27-283.13, special event parking lots, interim parking lots, and residential parking for stadium events, repealing and replacing section 27-284, title, purpose, and applicability, periodic study of Tampa's urban forest, creating section 27-284.1, administrative authority, definitions, general procedures, fees, creating section 27-284.1.1, city tree matrix, technical standards, authority to establish, publish, and adopt, creating section 27-284.1.2, trees, protected grand and exempt trees, measurement methods, creating section 27-284.1.3, other exemptions, creating section 27-284.1.4, non-conforming landscape areas due to governmental acquisition, section 27-284.2, permits in general, tree protection during construction, inspections, creating section 27-284.2.1, permit for site clearing, application required documentation, inspections, creating section 27-284.2.2, permit for landscaping and tree planting activities as part of a building permit, application, required documentation, inspections, creating section 27-284.2.3, permit for tree pruning, application, standards and criteria for decision, required documentation and inspections, creating section 27-284.2.4, permit for protected tree removal, application, required documentation, standards and criteria for decision, inspections, petition for review, creating section 27-284.2.5, permit for grand tree removal, application, required documentation, standards and criteria for decision, inspections, petition for review, creating section 27-284.2.6, tree planting permit, procedures, requirements, inspections, creating section 27-284.2.7, emergency work, creating section 27-284.3, tree preservation, planting, landscaped area requirements, creating section 27-284.3.1, landscape and tree planting standards, tree preservation, retention standards, creating section 27-284.3.2, tree planting requirements, tree matrix irrigation, creating section 27-284.3.3, landscaped area and tree planting requirements, creating section 27-284.3.4, landscaped area in lieu calculation and payment general procedure, creating section 27-284.4, tree mitigation method requirements, creating section 27-284.4.1, tree mitigation calculations, creating section 27-284.4.2, tree planting permit for mitigation trees, repealing and replacing section 27-285, enforcement authority, penalties, remedies, repealing section 27-285.1, landscape and tree planting standards, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date.
We have a motion that is, yep, let's give him a hand.
Thank you.
I have no problem with that.
I should.
I think that's the longest one ever.
It might be.
And Marty, did you?
If I can just be heard very briefly,
Yes,
Council.
sir.
I just want to make clear for, obviously, Council understands this, but also for the public's understanding, and also that it's clear for the record, that what you've just read is a legislative matter. It is not a quasi-judicial matter. So as such, it is treated differently. Frankly, the opportunity to be heard at this is this motion tonight moves it forward to a second reading and an adoption public hearing, at which time the public will be given the opportunity to speak. So therefore, it would be my opinion that under Chapter 166, this is actually, because it's a legislative matter, it does require the title allowed to be read by title, in lieu of having to read the entire ordinance. The state gives you the opportunity to read it by title only. But
Wait
all,
until after he did that to tell us that?
no, I'm saying the alternative is to read the entire ordinance.
Okay.
But my point is this. My point is that, that because this is legislative, this is in fact a ministerial step towards moving it to a public hearing, at which time the public will have the opportunity to be heard.
Thank
I
you,
wish you would
Marty.
have had some oxygen if you've said that I couldn't do, I didn't have to do all that.
We have a motion by Councilman Suarez, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor of this voluminous motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes, April 18th, yes.
Motion carried with Reddick being absent. Second reading and adoption to be held on April 18th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Okay, now we go to item number 2. Anyone here from? Yep. And now we're going to have some folks who were here for the tree ordinance are apparently leaving, and some of the other poor folks downstairs can come
Chair,
on back.
if I could open public hearings 2 through 15. I think 15 was the last one.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Suarez, a second, I think, by Councilman Cohen, or Maniscalco, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let us begin then with item number 2. Anyone here from staff for item number 2?
Good evening, Council. Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. I won't give a full presentation since you saw that last time. This was a continued item. It's a comprehensive plan amendment from light industrial to community commercial 35 on Rowlett Park Drive. The Planning Commission did find this consistent. I do have that resolution available if you would like to see it, but it should also be in your packet. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from City Council? Okay, applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Todd Pressman, 200 Second Avenue South in St. Petersburg. I made the staff and citizens aware that we were coming tonight to ask for a continuance. As you know, I proudly represent Hope Street and the Idlewild Baptist Church, who have a decades-long tremendous history of charitable support of our community. We have dramatically changed direction, as discussed at the last hearing, to move towards a PD rezoning, so everyone knows exactly what's going to go where and how it will be phased or placed on the property. That is a huge undertaking. And in this case, it's being done from scratch on vacant land. Building footprints, site circulation, environmental studies, wetland jurisdictionals. Your application is 3 pages of requirements. So this is still a blank canvas. So we're here tonight to ask for a 6-month continuance. Additionally, all the plans have to go through a board, trustees, and directors. So they have really just barely begun to put that puzzle together. So our main goal is to work with the citizens clearly. They gave us a direction that we all do want to work towards. I am confident. I think that we can do that. But at this time, there is no PD plan. And we believe in 6 months we should be able to come forward with a very good plan that we will work hard towards and not expect, but hope the citizens will support as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from City Council?
If I
Councilman
could
Suarez.
before, Mr. Pressman, so are you asking for a date like September 26th, which,
Whatever would be 6
if
months.
that's
or
right, I think I'm trying to do my math, Mr. Pressman. So I'm trying to do math on this. I think it is September.
Mary's
Yeah,
saying yes.
okay.
And that would be
September 26th.
obviously for items 2 and 3.
Okay, terrific. Well, and then I guess we'll have to still get any public comment for
Yes.
number 3 also.
My good friend, Mr.
concerning
McElhaney, has been
continuance.
asking me about
Yeah.
this.
So, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from council? Okay, now we will go to public comment. And it's, I believe, only on the continuance, yeah. so-
Right, there's 2 provisions in this continuance. One is the land use provision, and the other is the rezoning provision. I've exchanged several emails with Mr. Pressman and copied you as council members on that. The land use amendment could go forward if they would define the residential area. The remainder of that property could be developed exactly as he's proposing with his warehouse, without having to encumber the whole property for potential residential development. We have encouraged him to do that. We've reached out and talked to the city staff, and they've indicated to me that if it is less than 1 acre of property, and I have suggested 0.85 acres along the southeastern corner of the property be designated, that they could move forward with the land use amendment as quickly as they can get you a legal description. So we don't have any problem with continuing the zoning portion for 6 months if that's what he wants, but we would have a serious consideration and problems with continuing the land use portion. And I know that sometimes the council likes to see them moving together, but if they are going to follow through with what they said, which was to restrict the land use to a small area instead of encumbering all of that property and then adversely affecting all of the industrial users all the way around them, as well as the other property owners, and there's other people to speak on this, we'd strongly recommend that you shorten the time frame on the land use portion. and not the zoning portion. If he wants 6 months to develop a plan, that's fine. He can go forward right now with his land use section if he gave you a legal description. I've confirmed that with the city legal department, with the planning commission, and with the city staff. And what happens with that is it doesn't have to go to DCA. It doesn't have to wait to come back to you for two hearings. It could be adopted here under first reading and then the second reading as well before this council is removed to another area. You have a new council sitting, and we have to go through this whole.
Where are we going?
We have to go through this whole presentation again if you continue the land use section for 6 months. But if he wants to do it that way, it's to his benefit to reduce it to less than 1 acre. It saves him another 2 or 3 months in review time going to DCA and then coming back. We respectfully request that you consider the land use portion not being continued for 6 months.
All right, the public comment, Mr. Michelini, is in terms of the continuation.
Right.
You do not want to continue the land use portion. We want to make sure we get this right. We don't want to know what your opinion is as to what he should be doing.
Right.
He's going to have to make a decision based on his.
We would not like it continued for 6 months. No.
I got it. No, regardless of what happens, though, Mr. Michelini, I think you understand that this council, as it is, will not be looking at.
I understand that.
So,
it's the
I mean-
timing of that. We also have to engage other experts on the other side for an extended period of time. I mean, it's going to drive his expenses up as well as the individuals who have concerns.
You're very magnanimous in terms of what his own expenses are going to be, but I mean, he still has the right to ask for that. That's the
I
only
agree.
thing. Okay.
This is his second continuance.
Yeah, we know.
Not
we
the
know
first
that.
one.
We know that.
Anyone else here for public comment on this item?
Susan Long, 921 East Broad Street. There's over 16 acres here. They want to build 4 structures. You don't need 16 acres to do that. If they keep it down to 1, maybe 2 at the most, it would be much more beneficial. They're just going to disrupt that whole section, eastern fringe of Seminole Heights.
And if I may, if could you stop the clock? Public comment is just to be restricted on the motion for continuance itself. I mean, to the extent do you
Okay.
believe those comments reflect upon
You want
that?
it just
you
for
may-
the continuance?
Yes.
Continue it. How's that?
Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment?
Good evening, Cammie Corbett for the record, 7406 Park Drive, Tampa, Florida. I have concerns about continuance for similar reasons that Mr. Michelini has. My biggest concern, though, is that in the last 3 months of the continuance, there's been very little communication between the applicant and myself and the neighborhood. They just said that they think they're going to be able to address our concerns, but we really haven't had any substantive discussions. So I would just, if you do choose to continue it, would encourage you to encourage the applicant to engage the neighborhoods early on in the planning process and not wait till 2 weeks before the hearing and give us a plan
And Chair, Ms.
and notice.
Councilman Suarez.
And Ms. Corbett, but if I recall correctly, in the last time, I think most of the folks that were in opposition of the original thing wanted to have a PD. Obviously, that does take some time, correct?
It does, but it doesn't take 6 months.
Well,
We
I
ha-
can't-
I have clients that'll come to me and say, file before the next cutoff. So,
I-
I mean, I'm not gonna opine on what he said about that. I'm just gonna tell you what my thoughts are.
And
what my
nor am I,
concerns are.
so we're just kind of taking him at his word, so.
Okay. Anyone else here for public comment on this item? Okay, Mr. Pressman, or Mr. Shelby?
Yes, Council, just for your consideration, 6-month requests for continuances are very rare. And in those instances, being that it's such a long length of time, Council has taken the opportunity to inquire of the petitioner whether they'd be willing to renotice, to put the public on notice somewhere down the road. So that might be something Council may want to inquire of Mr. Pressman if Council would consider his request.
A wise option.
May I speak? Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. Per code, if they change the rezoning request from a Euclidean rezoning to a planned development, they're required to renotice regardless.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Pressman for rebuttal.
I'd just like to put on the record that this is a big undertaking for the group. They've never done this before. They have to find an engineer. They have to get even a preliminary plan through their group. So we knew we were going to ask for a continuance. I did reach out to the community. I reached out to Old Seminole Heights that Cammie's with, talked to them or emailed them myself. Once we have a plan, we will be inclusive with everyone. But I don't want the council to have any impression from anyone that we're working towards a different regard or we have not been in touch with the neighbors, because that's not the case. This is a great organization. It does take a long time, as you all know, for one of these plans from scratch. We could end up with a huge wetland in one area and have to work around it, just as one example. So I think you all understand that. But we are here, for the folks who spoke, to work with the neighbors. We have that goal. We want to work towards that goal, and we will be inclusive. That's all. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from City Council?
Mr. Chairman, from what I've heard from both sides, I remember that hearing some time back where there was little of something and the neighborhood wanted more of that little of something. They wanted more residential. And from what I'm hearing, it might come back one way or the other, either to satisfy what was said in the earlier debate on the previous hearing that we had, or maybe they won't have enough residential. So what I'm asking both sides to do, even though it's one side is the presentation, the other side is either accepting it or not accepting what's coming. And I would like to just say that think before you start drawing what the neighborhood looks like today and what it's going to look like tomorrow and what it's going to look like forever. So I'd like to make that clear right choice to those that are doing those plans, that neighborhood is very sustainable to the city of Tampa, and we like to keep it that way.
Well said. Anyone else? No, I'm glad to see that there is at least that we'll see how council acts on it, but a request, because this is standing aside from any legal pronouncements we may have, a very worthy endeavor by a big community partner that this city and larger area has in improving our community. So I'm glad to see, and I hope that there's dialogue and community engagement, which is what Idlewild knows how to do, certainly. Okay, what's the pleasure of council?
Well, I'd like to, Chair, if I'd like to move to continue item 2 to September 12th. We'd had to change that because it was liquor. We have a liquor night on the 26th, and after some of these discussions, I need some liquor myself. September 12th, if that's okay with.
Wait.
Oh, no? We have a problem here?
Planning Commission staff, Jennifer Malone, we typically do hear your land use amendments on that second evening of the month.
Okay, that's perfectly fine.
It's at the pleasure of council. I just wanted to make that clear.
You may have been drinking the way you jumped up. That's fine. We can make it September 26th at 6 p.m.
Okay. I
We-
seconded already.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. We have a motion by Councilman Suarez, a second by Councilwoman Capeen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carried with Reddick being absent. The item will be continued to September 12th,
September 26th.
26th, 2019 at 6 p.m.
Okay. And now does this dispose of item 3 as well, or is that?
We'll have to do.
That's what I
We
thought.
haven't. It's quasi judicial, so we have to swear everybody in. So
You want to open your?
we're all open. All the hearings are open.
Okay, swear the.
Please stand and raise your right hand. If you're going to speak. Do you swear or affirm? Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
I know. Okay. Okay, staff, go ahead.
I can't right now. Okay, so just to clarify, Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination, just to clarify the agenda for the public, items number 6, 10, and 13 did not perfect notice, so they cannot be heard tonight. And so the first item on. Yes, sir. Those were all misnoticed, and they cannot be heard tonight. So item number 4 is REZ 19.
Excuse me, was item number 3 disposed of?
Not yet, Mr. Shelby. She's handling some homework, and then we're going to do the rest.
I just want, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just asking whether those items need to be removed from the agenda before you move on.
We're waiting for her to finish, and then we'll
I'm just
pick it up.
restating what's on the agenda, that it already says they cannot be heard.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right.
But it also normally requires a motion from council to remove it from the agenda. Okay. I will.
Go ahead.
I'm finished.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to remove items 6, 10, and 13 from the agenda.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Okay, next we go to item 3.
Item number 3 was REZ 18113 is the corresponding rezoning that went with the comprehensive plan amendment that you just moved to continue to the September 26th meeting. Staff has nothing further to add. Staff has not received any revised plans or any revised proposals from the applicant.
Any questions or comments by Tampa City Council? Okay, applicant.
We would just make the same request for the companion rezoning. We appreciate your consideration. And we'll, again, with this as well, keep the neighbors and concerned citizens up to speed.
Ms. Kurt?
Thank you, Council. I would just ask, since this will end up being continued for more than 180 days, your code requires that you make a finding of extenuating circumstances, so I would just ask that you would include that finding in your motion.
So just make the motion to continue and say it's because of extenuating circumstances?
That would be sufficient. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions from City Council?
So we'll have another 3, Mr. Chairman, for.
And do we need to take public comment
On the continuance only, yes.
If I may, if anybody here is, wishes to make public comment on item number 3 on the continuance only? Okay, seeing none.
Move item 3, Mr. Chairman, for reasons continuous circumstances beyond our control, and item number 3 be held on September the 26th at 6 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Suarez. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Going on to item number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Motion to continue carried with Reddick being absent. Second reading and adoption to be held on September 26th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. At 6 p.m.
Thank you. Next, item number 4.
Mary Samaniego, item number 4 is REZ 1912. It's a rezoning request for the property at 2807 North Boulevard and 518 West Plaza Place from RO and RS 50 to RM 18.
Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. This is located in the Central Tampa Planning District, more specifically within the Tampa Heights Urban Village. I'm going to show an aerial. This is Graham Elementary. This is the subject site. We're along North Boulevard and West Plaza Place. This is north of West Columbus Drive, and I will show the future land use map. The future land use is residential 20. This is that public, which is the elementary school, that's the blue, and then the orange is that residential 10, which is more of a single-family detached future land use category. The request for the residential multifamily 18 zoning district is comparable and compatible with that residential 20 future land use category, and that is the type of development that is encouraged by the comprehensive plan in these areas. That concludes my presentation. I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from, and thank you, ma'am. Any questions from City Council? Okay.
Okay, Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. Jennifer showed you a aerial and the comprehensive plan land use designation for the property. Here's the zoning map of the surrounding area. The subject property is in green. It is zoned RO residential office and RS 50, which is a single family single-family detached zoning lot. The property is currently vacant. This overall area is RS 50, and then along North Boulevard, we have some PDs, another RO, a PD, and then the RM 16. The applicant's wanting this property to go to the RM 18. As Jennifer described for the land use category, this is in an area that is contains detached single-family houses, but is slated and their policy guidance to increase the density in this area for 20 dwelling units per acre in general. So the RM 18 is an allowable consideration of a zoning district within the R20 land use. And like I said, the property is vacant. There's RM 16 to the south. This is a Euclidean rezoning request, so there's no site plan or waiver to review and approve. So if approved, any development would have to comply with all standards in the RM 18 zoning district. The development review and compliance staff found this consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Okay, thank you very much. Applicant.
Thank you, council members, Leighton Hyde for the applicant. Because the ordinance is consistent with the comprehensive plan, we respectfully request that you pass this ordinance this evening. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from council for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, time now for public comments on item number 4. If you wish to comment on this item, please come on up.
Move to close.
We have a motion to close by Councilman Miranda, a second by Councilman Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Councilman Cohen, could you, sir, read item number 4, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 2807 North Boulevard and 518 West Plaza Place in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RO, residential office, and RS50, residential single family, to RM18, residential multifamily, providing an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Cohen, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carried with Reddick being absent and Suarez being absent at vote. Second reading and adoption to be held on April 18th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Thank you. Okay, next we go to item number 5.
Thank you. Mary Samaniego, item number 5 is REZ 1915 for the property located at 3302 West San Juan Street. It's a rezoning from RM16 to RM18.
Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. This is in the Central Tampa Planning, South Tampa Planning District, a Level C evacuation zone. Corona Park is located about a half mile to the south, and it does have HART service. Routes 19 and 36 serve the subject site. We are south of West Bay to Bay Boulevard, and then you can kind of see a little bit of the expressway over here. I have West San Juan, South Ferdinand Avenue. There's definitely a mixture of uses. This is an elementary school to the south. There's a mix of housing types in this area, some multifamily and single-family detached, which is reflected on our future land use map. The designation is residential 20. There is some residential 10 in the neighborhood. That's the school I pointed out. That blue is for the public, quasi-public future land use designation. The comprehensive plan does seek to provide diverse housing opportunities for Tampa's growing future population. It encourages effectively utilizing this underutilized land for higher density housing. This would be consistent with the underlying future land use designation and these policies within the comprehensive plan. And I'm available for any questions. We did find it consistent. Thank you.
Any questions from City Council?
Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. As I stated, this is a rezoning request from RM16 to RM18, so they're just asking for a density bump up to the next highest land use zoning district. This overall area is RM16, and then you have some RS50 kind of interdispersed. This is an area with the comprehensive plan and zoning is kind of interdispersed through actions with comprehensive plan amendment some time ago. Here is the subject property, currently vacant. Here's the property to the west at 3306 San Juan, Cross San Juan, vacant on the corner. Then across the street on Ferdinand here. And then there's single-family houses on this side of the block. This is a Euclidean rezoning request, so there's no site plan or waivers to review. Any development that was to occur would have to completely comply with all basic code requirements of the Land Development Code and other applicable code sections. The Development Review and Compliance staff found this consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Any questions from City Council? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Applicant.
Good evening, Council. My name is Bob St. Pierre. I'm representing the applicant. As shown, both Land Development and the Planning Commission have found the rezoning to be consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances, as well as the provisions of the Tampa Comprehensive Plan. I'm respectfully asking the council to move forward with this recommendation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from City Council? Okay. Now, if anyone here, thank you, sir. If anyone here from the public would like to comment on item number 5, please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Council. I'm Kim DeGantz, the President of the Palmacia Neighborhood Association. I'm here tonight because the Neighborhood Association opposes this rezoning. We had a house directly across the street that she pointed out is vacant. It actually has a house on it. 3 years ago come and want to do the same thing, and we stood up here trying to deny it. We have fought hard to not have new quadruplex in our neighborhood. We feel it doesn't go with the look and feel that we want in our neighborhood. We also are concerned you take one house and you knock it down that potentially had 2 adult drivers there. You want to put a house that has that's a quadruplex that could have 8 cars there. Where are all these cars going to park? Where are all these cars going to start driving on the already overcrowded roads? There's no sidewalks. There's a school very close by. We just do not feel that this is appropriate to rezone. This will set a precedence for other builders to come in and do the exact same thing and lead to overcrowding in our neighborhood. I would ask that you deny this rezoning tonight. I also have a letter that I want to add to the file.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here for public comment on item number 5? Sir.
Good evening. My name is Scott Price. I'm a homeowner and a resident at 3312 West San Juan Street, and I'm representing the other single-family homeowners on the block. I'd like to submit a letter to the council this evening. As a resident on San Juan Street, I fully understand the impact and the issues that the above rezoning requests have posed to our street. Over the years, we've witnessed several homes being built on our street as our neighborhood continues to grow. However, these new constructions have torn down a single-family home and built a new single-family home in its place. This is different. At present, we currently have 6 multi-unit buildings on our small street in South Tampa. Due to the growth and lack of parking space on the street, we're faced with tight and overcrowded parking, which also leads to increased traffic, our kids not being able to play safely in the streets, homeowners' cars being hit. Mine's been hit 3 times, for the record. No space to clear the street for drivers passing through, as well as our local elementary school, Roosevelt, reaching max capacity. The above rezoning request would allow for 4 townhomes that will used to be a single-family home. It does not consider the impact of daily living to the current residents whatsoever. We welcome new families and homeowners into the neighborhood, but only those that have our best interest in mind. We respectfully ask that you take into consideration the people that live on the street and how it would negatively impact our day-to-day living when making your decision on rezoning 3302 West San Juan Street. I have a letter from myself and 7 other homeowners on the street. I would have 3 more, but they were on vacation. I'd like to submit this to the council.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here for public comment on item number 5? I have 4 extra minutes.
Good evening.
Okay.
I'm Jack Rudd.
Hang on a second, Mr. Rodriguez. Is Miss Kathy Long here? If you could raise your hand. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Rita Skaya. Thank you, ma'am. Bob Atkins or Barb Atkins? Thank you. Bob. Is it Bob? I can't see you, Bob, but I know it's Bob. And then Miss or Mr. Friedman? Miss Friedman, Mr. Friedman? Are they outside there? Mr. Shelby, you walk out for a minute, I take your job. And I'm not even a lawyer. We've already got these 3. Mr. Friedman, we're waiting for. Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I was just making sure.
And the chair is, I'm satisfied that this gentleman's
So he
here.
just went to the bathroom.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you
So-
go to the bathroom and check and make sure he's here, Mr. Shelby?
How does council wish me to proceed on this?
I'm satisfied that this
So
gentleman's
4
here.
additional minutes for a total of 7, is that?
Yes, sir.
And also, council, I just wanted to bring to your attention that I'm asking the aides to be able to communicate with the people downstairs to make sure that as the items approach, that they're able to hear, so we don't have any concerns about people not being able to be heard.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I'm Jack Rodriguez. I live at 3218 West San Juan, a couple of houses over from the subject property. Palmacia Park was a subdivision was platted in the 20s during the boom with 5,000 square foot lots. It's dotted with Mediterranean and brick apartments. There's not been a duplex built in the neighborhood in over 30 years, since 1989. There's not been a rezoning approved in the neighborhood since 2002, and that was a PD rezoning. The neighborhood was reclassified to RM16 in 1989. RM16 provided and recognized the area's 5,000 square foot lots and prohibits duplexes. City Council recognized this issue and changed the requirements so duplexes and townhouses could not be built unless they had more than 5,000 square feet. It's obvious and most important that it was the intent of council. This new zoning made all apartments, duplexes, and townhouses in the neighborhood legal non-conforming. They are all on 5,000 square foot lots. The construction timeline on the duplexes and townhouses are all built before 1989. The rezonings were an accommodation to the property owners to protect their investment and private property rights. All redevelopment in the neighborhood has been single-family detached housing. There's not been one duplex built, as I said. The area is dotted with RS50 and RS60 zoning. There is RS50 adjacent to the rear of the subject property. Transportation didn't go out there, otherwise that they would recognize that they would see the narrow streets filled with cars. It's like driving from one side of the street to the other to get down this street. Emergency vehicles had to come to my house 3 months ago and barely didn't make it. There's also an old stucco apartment building immediately across from this site. Its cars are parked all along the front of the right-of-way. In addition, and this is important, the north side of San Juan has city no parking signs, as well as the east and west side of Ferdinand, which both streets adjoin this site. The Planning Commission's report looks at what has been built prior to 1989. It recognizes old duplexes and multifamily development. They have ignored current development since there has not been duplex or multifamily development built in over 30 years. They have not looked at current development trends. Over 100 single-family detached homes have been built in this immediate neighborhood in the past 5 years. The Planning Commission should, with your direction, update its outdated plan based on current market conditions. The request is a spot zoning. This approval will set a precedent for duplex rezoning request. It will open the floodgates for requests to rezoning to RM18 for additional duplexes. The duplexes in the area have been grandfathered in and if torn down or destroyed will not be able to be rebuilt. Council denied a rezoning request directly across the street from this site in 2016. The request was identical to this one. The staff reports were identical to this one. Our presentation is identical to that one. You unanimously denied that request. I see no difference here. You should again vote to deny. Many of the structures were built to the RM zoning classification. The duplexes and multifamily units are in the minority and are legal non-conforming. I researched houses in the immediate neighborhood. There have been 100 single-family detached homes built in this immediate neighborhood in the last 5 years. No duplexes. There are also 8 single-family houses currently under construction in the immediate neighborhood. That calculates out to be about $70 million of investment in our neighborhood. I've practiced real estate for over 47 years. The petitioner paid the average price for a single-family detached lot. I see no economic hardship for them to request higher density. To allow duplexes in this neighborhood will reverse the positive effect of single-family detached housing that has been bringing the neighborhood back and increasing property values. Okay, so why should you deny? Because the RM16 recognizes existing single-family and multifamily development. All lots in the neighborhood are platted 5,000 square feet. You all recognized the issue and did away with R2 zoning when you rezoned the area in 1989. There are parking issues along the street. The request is a spot zoning and will encourage more requests. The request will impact the character of the neighborhood by encouraging duplex development. The rebirth of duplexes will discourage new single-family detached construction. Most importantly, council denied the same request 3 years ago with no additional new information or evidence. I think council has spoken and set the precedent to keep and protect the neighborhood single-family detached housing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here for public comment on item number 5? Okay, being none, we go to rebuttal.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Jack, who I met out there on the property, and tried to explain what we were doing. The bottom line is staff and the Planning Commission have found this to be consistent and where the city wants to go. Just a few things. One, we did have transportation out there, and that's something that's holding us back a little bit about what we want to do based on their recommendations. So we did have transportation out there. Also, Mr. Rodriguez had indicated that we were setting a precedent. Well, as you can see, there's RM18s all over that area. The other thing that's a little misleading is...
Councilman,
yes,
Councilman.
Can we put that back up?
Sure.
The RM18s that you're pointing out there, are those existing multifamily units that predate the zoning change?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, well, thank you.
The other thing is that home was originally a duplex. I know because one of my best buddies lived in it that we bought it for. So that was a duplex, and he turned it into a single family, but that was a duplex. Thank you.
Nothing.
Chair, can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You made a comment just a moment ago. You said that Transportation Department was working through some issues you had.
No, we had transportation out there because on our plan, the way we wanted to put our driveways, they said we couldn't do them like that because we didn't have enough room from the stop sign. So we're still trying to work around what exactly we can put there and how we'll do it.
Now, is it because of the number of vehicles that are going to be parking there, or is it because of the size of the turnaround? What is it that
It's
they're...
the amount of distance from the...
Okay. If I could, I'm going to ask our staff to stand up, and let me get the specifics from him, if that's okay.
Yes, Jonathan.
Jonathan Scott, Transportation Planning.
Okay, you heard what I was asking him. What are the issues associated with this particular plot of land?
I believe he was looking at like a corner clearance issue for the driveway, meeting the corner clearance for his driveway specifications. I forget exactly, but it was something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
It had to do with, you said corner clearance?
Corner clearance and meeting the driveway specifications for the lot.
Meaning how wide the spaces are,
or just how far it was too close to the corner. It has to be a certain distance from the corner streets, basically.
Does it cause a problem later on, or I mean, what's the issue, I guess?
Well, it has to meet the technical standards, or they'd have to get a design exception. So
and the design exception can be approved by the zoning administrator. Is that what it is, or?
It would have to be approved by our transportation
I
design
apologize,
department.
Transportation Department, right, okay.
Yes.
All right, terrific. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions from the city council? Nothing further, sir? Rebuttal?
No.
Okay. May I have a motion to close? Move to close. Second. We have a motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Capeen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? What is the pleasure of council?
Try? I'll try something. How's that? Okay, I am going to move to deny this application because I think that it is inconsistent with the development pattern of the neighborhood and the clear intent of the council when it rezoned the neighborhood in 1989 to basically restrict it to single-family development.
If I may
Oh,
add-
and
if I
Councilman-
may add,
Yeah.
friendly amendment, that on the particular item that we saw on our screen, that there was no RM 18 on that block, on that surface or that face of that block. That's the evidence that I saw.
Okay, yes.
Is
I'll
that-
add that
okay.
to the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilman Cohen, a second by Councilman,
Yes.
go ahead, Nim.
I didn't mean to interrupt that
You're
portion
fine.
of it, and there was a second. I just wanted to state that under state statute, city council is required to cite,
Cite the code.
cite a
Yes.
specific
Well,
code
perhaps
section,
Mr.
which
Shelby could guide me to the.
yeah, and it can include a section of your comprehensive plan, but you do have to cite to a specific code section that they're not meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Kurt. Mr. Shelby, if you could be of assistance, or Suarez,
Suarez can.
Okay.
or any of us.
If I could, I think, if you look under our land use objective 2.1, regulating the levels of building intensity according to standards, and Mr. Miranda just pointed out the RMF 18 is not a designation that, other than previously, that was grandfathered in from previous years, is not available.
But I think I
did-
need something from Land Development Code, not
Well-
from the comprehensive plan.
Well,
right?
I think we could do from either way.
Okay,
We
I
don't-
mean,
I-
Rebecca Kurt, Little Department. It is appropriate to base your approval, let me take a step back. Rebecca Kurt, Legal Department, everything has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is adopted by ordinance. Therefore, I think it meets both the requirement that all development has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the state statute that says that you have to cite a specific code to deny it based upon the comprehensive plan. So the short answer is yes, you can cite to the comprehensive plan.
I thought that was it. I wasn't sure. Secondly, land use policy 2.1.2, use of limited land resources more efficiently, pursue a development pattern. This is where we're at. That is more economically sound. This development pattern is not more economically sound. That encourage the kinds of infill development that is part of the development pattern in this particular neighborhood. Let's see here, and that land use objective 9.3, compatible development and redevelopment to sustain stable neighborhoods and ensure the social and economic health of the city. Obviously, this land use designation does not meet that standard.
And Councilman Cohen, that's
Why don't we incorporate that
Yes.
into the.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Fine with me?
We have a motion to deny by Councilman Cohen, a second by Councilman Suarez. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Motion to deny carried with,
And now, go ahead.
motion to deny carried with Reddick being absent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did Derek Jeter just show up or something? I'm not sure what's happening. Okay.
I wish they could hear this. They can't. So, my powers are limited.
Number 7.
We are on number 6. Seven. Is anyone here from staff for number 7?
Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. This is REZ 18100. It's a rezoning request for 4707, 4713, and 4717 West McCoy Street from Plan Development to Plan Development.
Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. Since this was continued and I gave a full presentation last time, I won't repeat myself. I'll just remind you where this is and what the land use allows. It is located on Southwest Shore. It is immediately south of a larger multifamily development that was developed within the last 10 years, I believe, directly to the north. And then the future land use is transitional use 24, which allows a variety of uses. It allows residential, allows commercial, it even allows a little bit of industrial in this area. This is identified, especially in this area, as really transitioning towards these residential uses. So we did find this consistent with the comprehensive plan, each submittal, and that concludes my presentation, but I am available to answer any questions about that future land use category or about those policies.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council?
Thank you. Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. As Jennifer stated, this was a continued application from the January 17th, 2019 public hearing. City Council made a motion. The original application was for plan development for multifamily residential with subsequent 7 waivers. Staff found it inconsistent because of the amount and nature of all the waivers, and it was staff's belief that the applicant could revise the plan, and by moving the buildings and perhaps losing 1 dwelling unit, that could significantly reduce the amount of waivers. The developer in this instance took staff's advice, but lost 1 dwelling unit, and as a result has gone from 7 waivers down to 2. The 2 waivers are to reduce the tree preservation from 50% to 0, and for the entries of buildings 2 and 3 to face the north and not a public right-of-way. All other provisions of the Land Development Code and applicable other City of Tampa Code of Ordinance requirements have been met. So now there is a total of 22 townhomes. There are some changes between first and second reading if this application is approved, just minor changes to some of the data on the site plan for land development and natural resources and transportation. But all 3 departments and the rest of the development review and compliance staff found this consistent with the Land Development Code, provided those revisions are made.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from council? Okay, applicant, please.
Good evening, council members. Roy Major, WRA Engineering, 4260 West Lineball Avenue. I'm a planner and an engineer on behalf of the applicant. Why we are here is the council was gracious enough to grant us a continuance so that we could indeed kind of huddle with staff and with our client, see if we could improve the site plan and bring it into consistency. We have indeed done that. As staff indicated, the area, the zoning for the area is TU 24. We are proposing 22 units now on the 1 acre land, 1 acre parcel, so we are in compliance with the area zoning. Just to show you a view of what the site looks like, and a concern that staff had was we're also taking down, all the trees on the site. No question about it. The site, this is what it looks like. This is looking east toward West Shore Boulevard. The site was master planned and mass graded with the intent of developing a restaurant. And so we're proposing to put 22 units as opposed to a restaurant. And so the trees on the site itself have been mass graded and have been removed. There are some trees around the perimeter which we are proposing to remove. This is just a glance at what they look like. This is along West Shore Boulevard. This is about 100 yards further north. That's the Jefferson Street Apartments. Our landscaping will look very similar. Again, what has changed is that we have dropped a unit. We have altered our green space, and in fact, we have enough green space now is that we will be planting all of our mitigation trees on site. So tree for tree, we're actually planting more trees than we are removing. Another concern was traffic, trip generation. And this is from the ITE, the standard trip generation software, comparing a 3,500 square foot restaurant with 22 townhomes. The first column in the blue is the daily trips created by a 3,500 square foot restaurant. The daily trips for in orange there are from 22 townhomes. Clearly you can see the total daily trips greatly reduced by what we are proposing. The AM peak for the restaurant, for a restaurant in the morning, not as much traffic, you can see it's 3 versus 10. In the evening, 26 trips for a restaurant, 12 for what we are proposing. So in terms of daily trips, PM peak hour trips, we're actually taking a few trips off the road by proposing 22 townhomes as opposed to the restaurant that is currently zoned for. We remain in compliance with green space, with parking. We are now compliant with building separation. We are now also, we can plant more trees on a one-for-one basis than we actually took down. And as Mary alluded to, perhaps the biggest difference between the previous meeting and this one is this graphic here, where we're showing every review is in compliance. From all 9 reviews by city staff find the site in compliance. Another concern was really, or a question was, was about the restaurant. Why are you choosing townhomes instead of pursuing a restaurant? And my discussion was about the marketability of that. So I'm going to allow my colleague Martin Frame to come and discuss that very point with you.
And Dwayne, do we have the timer on? Okay, well, go ahead.
I have a letter from the marketing broker for the property.
Thank you.
This property has been marketed for more than a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and it's been marketed to all the restaurant owners and users in the area. It's been taken to ICSC, which is the large retail conference that's held twice a year, and they have not gotten any traction with any kind of restaurant users on this site. There simply is not enough traffic to support a restaurant user here. That's actually one of the reasons why we do like it, is because it is a lower traffic area on West Shore that is more appropriate for housing. So I think that the use for townhomes is consistent from a planning standpoint. Next door we have 3-story apartments. We'll be building 3-story townhomes right next door. They're immediately adjacent. Driving down West Shore, it'll be, from a visual standpoint, look very similar to what's right in the immediate area. And as regards to traffic, as Roy mentioned, it's actually going to be a reduced traffic load compared to what a restaurant use would be today. So if there's any specific questions, happy to answer those.
Any questions from council? Councilman Suarez.
Okay, one of the issues that came up, the first, and I'm trying to remember this, I'm pretty sure I remember, there was a discussion from the neighborhood about the use for a restaurant. I mean, obviously, when the first PD came through, that was the idea behind it, was that it was going to be there. Now, what has happened since 2011, all the way, she can speak too, because she probably has better ideas than I do. What's happened between 2011 and now is actually we've increased the number of people that are down in that area, which in my mind, and I'm not a market expert, would seem like there would be more customers there than when they first originally devised an idea for retail. And one of the discussion items that were done at the last meeting was that they desperately would like to see and would like to continue along that path of having a restaurant. Now, are you, and I want to make sure I get this right, because you're not Mr. Eilers.
I'm Mr. Martin Frame. I'm with David Weekley Homes.
Okay, so and I guess the Mark Eilers is the one that made the original report saying that he didn't think it was credible to have a restaurant. Is that correct?
That's what he mentions in his.
That's why I make sure. I want to make
Yes,
sure that's not
yes.
your words. That's his words.
That's correct. And,
Okay.
and he's the listing broker and has been in charge of marketing the property for the last 2 years.
Okay.
And he's also been involved in this property for, I think, since 2011.
Yeah, it sounds like he was involved with the Jefferson Apartment Group, as what it says
That's right.
in the letter. Okay, and the Jefferson Apartment Group is the one that is adjacent to this particular property?
They built the apartments right next door, yes, sir.
Okay, so, but he wasn't involved in that other parcel to say, hey, you're making a huge mistake. Why are you doing retail here? You guys are really off the mark.
Well, I don't know that it was up to him to
Okay.
make that decision. As a broker, it would have been the original landowner.
Oh, it sounds to me like he meant it then, but he obviously didn't tell anybody.
I can't speak for him.
I know you can't. I'm just saying you gave me this, so I got to go by
Yeah.
what you gave me. So
No, understood.
All right.
Understood.
So you can't answer to this. Per
No,
se.
I can't answer to the
Okay.
fact that
You
he
just
thinks-
wanted to give me. You just wanted to give us the letter. You work with Mr. Eilers, is that it?
Well, I've been working on this transaction, yes.
On the transaction.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
So I'm the buyer of the property.
I just want to make sure because I'm a little confused about this because obviously you had somebody that was originally involved in it. It went in as including the restaurant. Okay.
Correct.
Now he's saying I never liked that idea, but I'm still involved in this deal, and telling you now it's a good idea to do the other thing. Now he may have told the other group originally that hey it was a bad idea, but we don't know. We just know by his letter.
Well, in hindsight, I think that he might have possibly warned at that time, but again, he's not the one that's making the decision. He doesn't own the property. He's not the property owner.
Got it. I just want to make sure what the reason for the letter was. That's why.
Just to let everybody know that it has been marketed as a restaurant site, and they have tried to sell it as a restaurant site, but have not been successful in doing so.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further questions or comments from City Council? Okay. Anything further? Applicant?
No, thank you.
Nothing? Okay. Now, public comment. Anybody here for public comment on item number 7? Name?
Good evening, Callie Deno, Port Tampa. I'm the president of the Civic Association of Port Tampa, and I appreciate you remembering the history of the transaction, so I won't go into that again. The community would like you to consider keeping the lot zoned specifically for the restaurant. There's a huge lack of it in the area right now, while the addition of residences and people continues to take place. Martin Frank from David Weekly did meet with members of the board and to discuss this project, and we appreciated the meeting. And we did ask about mixed use to see if we could kind of meet in the middle. It's just not something that David Weekly does, so it's not a part of their business model. So we understand why it's not something that they specifically are going to consider. As these proposals continue to come up, though, I hope that you'll consider the large amount of development coming to Port Tampa and the number of people and vehicles being added to the area. While you also alluded to this already, the area might not have supported the restaurant before, but it is certainly growing at a rapid rate and will continue to support one. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else here for public comment on item number 7? Ms. Kurt?
Thank you. Rebecca Kurt, Legal Department. I know City Council knows this, but just for record purposes, I just want to remind City Council and the audience that the property owner doesn't have the burden to show whether or not there is an economic need or not an economic need for their project. It's strictly a land use question that's before you tonight. So I know that the issue was brought up before, and a lot of issues get brought up, but since there was a lot of discussion about it tonight, I just wanted to remind City Council for the record.
If I could ask a question of Mr. Kurt.
Go for it.
Asking the question after something is being presented to us is legitimate. It's okay, correct?
Yes. Yes, there are many
Okay.
things that people present to City Council that are unfortunately not relevant in a strict land use setting. And just before City Council got to their final I am not having my A game tonight. Deliberation.
Try reading that first thing that I had to read, okay?
I'm not going to say it's the building, but I just wanted to make it clear for the record that City Council has to vote this up or down based upon your already adopted comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and not on whether or not there's an economic need or not an economic need for the project.
Well, let me ask you a different question then.
Sure.
Obviously, it was the original PD for this was for that type of use. Is it proper to ask questions about that previous, PD for that particular use?
It is completely appropriate to
Okay.
ask about what the current land designation is and what that PD is. I wasn't meaning to say that the questions weren't appropriate. I just
Okay.
meant for the final deliberation, when you're looking upon what you're supposed to weigh your decision, it needs to be the comprehensive plan and the
Ms.
land
Kurt, you know I
development.
never like to get in trouble with the lawyer, okay? So I appreciate you telling me that.
Thank you, counsel.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Rebuttal?
Just in closing, I just want to mention that we did work with the city to bring this much more in line with the desires of the city. We've reduced the waivers down from 7 down to 2. We're planting more trees than we're actually taking out. The stuff that we are taking out are cabbage palms that are not necessarily the most well taken care of trees at this time. The site itself, I think, lends itself towards this use. And the zoning that we're asking for is, we're not asking for a change of zoning category. We're simply asking for a change of use within the existing zoning category. So I think that's important to understand, that we're not trying to rezone the property to a higher density or anything like that. We are well within the right of the TU 24 to ask for the single-family attached dwellings that we're looking to build. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I have a motion to close?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Capeen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Councilman Maniscalco, do you feel comfortable taking item number 7? Okay.
I'll do it. An ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 4707, 4713, 4717 West McCoy Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, more particularly described in section 1 from zoning district classification PD plan development, retail and restaurant to PD plan development, residential single-family attached, providing for an effective date.
We have a motion by Councilman Capeen, a second by Councilman Cohen. Mr. Shelby?
And just, Councilwoman Capeen, that includes the revision sheet, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Capeen, a second by Councilman Cohen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And 2 now.
Motion carried with Reddick being absent and
Suarez.
Suarez and Maniscalco voting no. Second reading and adoption to be held on April 18th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Now we move on to item number 8, if anyone here is here from staff for that.
Yes, I'm here. Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. This is REZ 18101. It's another continued case from the February 14th meeting. It's a rezoning request from RM16 to PD at 414 and 418 East Emily Street.
Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission staff. We're in the Central Tampa Planning District within the Tampa Heights Urban Village again. This is not located in the evacuation zone, but 3 HART routes do serve the subject site. Sorry, excuse me, I'm going to zoom out. I have Interstate 275, East Emily Street right here, and North Central Avenue. This is the Robles Park Housing Village, and then I also have a park to the south. The future land use designation is residential 30, excuse me, it's actually residential 20, but this is residential 35 over here, and then I have that rec open space, which is that park, which is the green color. We did find this consistent with the comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan has a policy about congregate living facilities, which is what this applicant is requesting. HSG policy 1.7.2. We did find this consistent with that policy that speaks to those facilities because they are, and I'm quoting the policy here, they may be considered in any land use plan category that permits residential uses. So it is appropriate here. It's comparable and compatible with the surrounding development pattern and consistent with the comprehensive plan. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions from council, staff?
Thank you. Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. As I stated, this is a continuation from last month's hearing. I'll have the applicant speak in more detail about it, but basically it came in as a 150 bed congregate living facility in 2 buildings that'll be remodeled. There's a lot of public input about the nature of the use and the design of the site. As a result, the applicant has revised the application context from 150 beds down to 87 beds. within the existing structure with an addition and the second existing structure. That subsequently has reduced the parking slightly. Other than that, it's the same general layout. This current plan is asking for no waivers. It is a PD, but there are no waivers being requested. And the development review staff found it consistent with the City of Tampa Land Development Code, provided there are changes made between first and second reading, just some minor typos from Land Development Coordination. All the other departments didn't have any changes between first and second reading. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions from council? Thank you. Applicant?
J.B. Bricklemeyer for representing the developer as the applicant. We provide a large amount of information by email for the council for your consideration. Be happy to answer any questions about that if you've had time to review it. I'm going to review just a couple of the positive highlights of the project, which are not included in that information. City staff, as Mary said, did find we were totally consistent. We have met with the Tampa Heights Civic Association Board every month since December in discussions on this. The developer has met with them as well. He has signed an agreement complying with all of their requests as far as site changes and accommodations. One of those was to design the exterior of the building such that it complies with the Tampa Heights Historic District guidelines, even though it's not in the Tampa Heights Historic District and that's not required. A little history: 414 East Emily was under city demolition orders, a public nuisance and an unsafe structure 3 years ago. Since purchasing the property in August of 2016, Mr. Begdory, who was the developer, has secured the property and the building and stabilized the structure, which one of his folks will show some pictures of that in a short while. He purchased 418 East Emily Street a year ago and commenced with the assisted living facility, which is the intent, and that's been documented in the agreement. It appears at this point his investment so far is about $325,000 in stabilizing the structure and improving the facilities. He put on hold when he went to the PD to wait for the zoning to be completed. He expects the anticipated renovation costs of the two current structures to be about another $330,000, somewhere in that ballpark. The total, the addition is going to be about $1.25 million for the new structure. And once completed, he expects to have about 25 folks on staff. I don't really have any other comments at this time. I'd like to reserve my time for rebuttal, and I do have an additional speaker time note.
Okay. I'm sorry, what? And what was your
Any
last
questions?
No, what was it? That was the last thing that you said. Any questions? Any questions from council of the applicant? Thank you. Now, I know that there have been some people that have walked in previously. If you are planning on speaking on item number 8 through 15, and you are in the room, and you have not been sworn in, please stand and be sworn. Dwayne, if you could.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item, item number 8? Item number 8, REZ 18-101. Anyone in the public like to speak on that? Come forward.
Good evening, Council. Justin Rickey, President of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. My address is 103 East 26th Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33603. I'm not sure if Mr. Bricklemeyer submitted the agreement that we have between the Civic Association and the developer. We have a revised agreement. I don't know if you have this, but may I submit this for
absolutely
record? The current position of the Civic Association is that we do not support or oppose this. That's the position of the Civic Association. Now I'd like to give you my personal position. Mr. Miranda, a few moments, well, probably several minutes ago, you said you want to look to where the neighborhood's going, where it will be in the future, and what will be there forever. When I think about that comment, and I think about this specific development in my neighborhood, it doesn't exactly excite me. We've seen this before in Tampa Heights. It's nothing new. It's nothing groundbreaking or visionary. it's probably going to be something down the road that we're going to have to deal with, like a lot of these other institutions that we end up having to deal with. And at the end of the day, you know, I have to do what's, and this is, again, my personal feelings, not the position of the Civic Association. I gave you that already. This is mine as a resident of Tampa Heights. I'm not enthused about it. I don't like it. I don't think it's going to fit the future use of that. I know there's what your staff say, but I don't think it will fit what is going to be the future of that area. That area has seen enough blight. It's seen enough struggle. It's seen enough poverty. And I just want to say, you know, last meeting, we had a parade of people come up here that were veterans, and it made it seem like this was a veterans facility. It's not. I want to be clear about that. And I also want to say that the environment, as you gentlemen all probably know, around Robles Park is not exceptionally safe still, right? During the serial killer time, when I think one of the times where one of the gentlemen shot, 6 people in one night were shot in Robles Park. 6. And you want to open an ALF here for people that can't care for themselves? I don't think it's appropriate at the moment. And nor do I think that it's something else that we need to bear the burden of. And that's my own personal outlook. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you one more time for allowing us to be here. My name is Lena Young Green, and I have
Speaker waiver form?
yes.
If you could bring it up, Dwayne, if you could just grab that from her, please. There you go. The lawyer walks out just for me to do this. Okay, is Naya or Naya Young here? If you could raise your hand. Thank you. And I think that's it, correct? Only one person, Ms. Young? So that was 1 additional minute for a total of 4. You're welcome.
So thank you again. I live of anyone that's closest to this facility. I'm one of the closest neighbors. Have lived in that area for a long time. Over the years, we have spent many, many hours, many days and ongoing efforts in order to develop all of Tampa Heights. One of the things that I have often said here is that the north area should be equitable to the south area. We have great development that's happening on the south area. We have our CRA, we have our economic engine that's happening on the south area. We have new houses, new facilities, new buildings that are coming in, restoring of our old buildings. North Tampa Heights around Robles Park is one of the most vulnerable parts of our community. We've been working for a long time with the housing development to help improve that area. The housing complex has 35 acres with over 1,000 people living in that area. We have a beautiful park that we are very proud of in that area. Brick streets, narrow streets. All the houses that are around the park are single-family houses. Now, we've been asking for the zoning, form-based zoning for a long time, and we haven't gotten it. If we had that, we believe that we, the residents, would have put into that what we actually desire for that specific area. But this would be the only facility around a park that has all single-family residents. Our president talked a little bit about what we deal with on an ongoing basis. Helicopters are hanging over our houses every night, monitoring that area. This is not an area to not only raise the number that was there many years ago when we finally got that facility that was another, same as this they're putting in, that only had, I think, 19 residents at that time, changing that to up to 87 residents right next to the public housing in an area that's such a small area that when there is an event at the park, we are prepared because we can't get our vehicles in. That's that area. If you have any emergency at this facility with 87 residents who need help, there will be a problem. Many of the other facilities like this that we have done research on are not within a residential alcove like we have there. Many of them are on commercial paths. This is not what we desire for this for our area. Tampa Heights is overburdened with these facilities. We are just over a mile of the neighborhood, and to add another 87 folks who need assisted living in an area that already has all the challenges that we have, and the fight that we've been doing for years and years and years, this is taking us backwards rather than looking forward to see what would be best for our area. Thank you. I sent my letter with some of my other comments, so please consider that.
Councilman Miranda.
I just wanted a little clarification from the legal department. When we have an agreement between a developer, any association, that does not leave us involved in that agreement. Am I correct?
Rebecca Kurt, Legal Department. It is my understanding that the city is not a party to this agreement, so
Right.
the city would not be enforcing the agreement.
Thank you very much.
Next.
Good evening, Council. My name is Aaron Barnes. I live at 5318 36th Avenue, Circle West, Apartment E2, Bradenton, Florida 34209. I've been working very closely with the applicant as a consultant to help make this revolutionary change, as some have expressed that they worry about the location and the current conditions of the properties. Now, if what they say is true, and they say that the police are out there constantly, and they have emergency response all the time, wouldn't that dictate that it's time for a change? Wouldn't it make more sense to get an assisted living facility out in the area? Every day, people are growing older. Everybody needs this. And I don't know if you've been looking at the location lately, but every single one of these assisted living facilities has a wait list of longer than a year. Now, I've got a little bit of talking points. I'm a little nervous. Last time we had a public outreach, I had a little bit of trouble stumbling, so bear with me. So, I have some photographs that they had talked about. This is prior to the reconstruction and the revitalization of the structure. Obviously, as you can see, it was kind of an eyesore. They had been working on revitalizing the structure to meet within the historic standards, which they expressed was not required. But again, the applicant is doing everything in their power to make it so that way everybody can come together and make this happen. These are just some photographs, as we had talked about, of the structure before. And they had made several changes to revitalize. Obviously, like Mr. Brickmeyer had said, that the location was set for destruction. They saw fit to come in here with this location near a park to make a difference, to rebuild and revitalize, to offer employment, to create opportunities in a place of struggle, and to build and help the local area. Now, I've been there on several occasions while I'm showing you these pictures. What they say is true. The location is rough. There is a great deal of structure, and they do have a lot of problems. I'm going to show you some more pictures of since then. There was complaints that it was not well kept. These pictures were taken recently. The updates that we had made, how clean and well kept the area is. And I want people to see that we are trying to the best of our ability to make this a future for everyone. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, if I could.
Yes, sir.
You are a consultant with that group?
For the applicant.
What do you do for them?
Well,
obviously,
originally when they
you
came
said
to
we
me-
quite a bit, so I want to make sure, because what I want to do is I want to make sure that your time is subtracted from the time that they have in order to do both their presentation and rebuttal.
Right. Basically, I'm a disabled veteran. And
That's not an advocacy. I mean, I want to know,
Right.
are you said you were doing consulting work.
Right.
What do you do for them?
basically come out and document the change.
So you're just a documentarian. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
I'm not
I'm trying to
exactly sure.
determine whether or not you're a member of the public, sir. That's all I'm trying to say. Sounds to me
I'm a
like
member
you're
of the
being.
public, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to determine, okay? So, no, you don't need to read it. I'm just saying, it sounds to me like you're an advocate and may be paid by the group?
Negative, sir. I received
You're
no
not, so you're a
payment.
member of the public. That's what I wanted to get at, because you said you were a consultant, and that's what I was confused about.
I apologize for my
No.
verbiage.
I just we need to get the truth, that's all.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to comment on this item? Okay, applicant for rebuttal.
I want to follow up, answer any final questions, and make a couple points based on some of the comments. Ms. Lena Young-Green said that the area is overrun with these facilities. There's 10 AOFs in all of 3.3, 602, and 603, providing a total of 150 beds. There's 3 AOFs in Tampa Heights providing 76 beds. 60 of those beds are in Palm Baptist, the high-rise tower. Those beds are $3,500 a month. So to say the neighborhood is overrun with assisted living facilities is imputing something it's not factually correct. And they're imputing a lot of the other congregate living facilities, which the applicant has made clear that he's not doing a homeless shelter or anything else. He's doing the assisted living facility. And the problems they've had with some of the other facilities, I totally agree with them. It's a problem. But that's not what that's not what the developer is planning on doing. So I just want to make that clear for council. We did that as well in our letter of communication. So any final questions?
Any questions, comments? Councilman Suarez.
You gave us an agreement with Tampa Heights Civic Association?
That's correct, sir. And the one that Mr. Ricky provided is the updated version that was provided via email yesterday.
Okay, who makes up the Tampa Bay Civic Association? Because I know Miss Lena Young-Green, Young is, been involved in
She's
it.
represented as a member of the public, not as a member, not as part of the association.
Well, I let her speak for herself.
I
I'm
understand.
asking you a question
Granted.
about who you dealt with. That's my question.
We dealt with the executive board at the Tampa
Okay.
Heights Civic Association.
Okay.
And we met with them every month and a couple of times with individuals. Mr. Mohammed or Mr. Begdouri met with Ms. Green. We've met with Mr. Ricky separately, and as he was the oncoming president, to get his guidance as we're trying to accommodate the requests of the Civic Association as the representatives of the neighborhood.
Okay, if I could, sir, I want to ask Mr. Ricky a question since it was presented. I'm a little bit confused. Mr. Ricky, if you could come up here for a second. Where'd he go? Did he leave already? He left. Oh, he's out in the hallway. Okay. Okay. Yeah, here's my problem, sir. I just want you to know. You have someone who is presenting an agreement supposedly between you and the association, who disagrees with it. Or disagrees. He said that he has. I don't think he liked it too much based on what he said. So I'm curious who made up that decision that he presented to us. I know he's involved with the executive board, so that's why I was a little confused that, there wasn't somebody that said, well, we made an agreement, so I'm just really confused about the whole thing, to be honest with you.
Let me see if I can do my best to explain in Mr. Ricky's absence.
Right.
He is the president of the Tampa Heights Executive Board.
Right.
So there's a Tampa Heights Civic Association that is it's a neighborhood association group.
I'm very familiar with them, yeah.
Okay, and so there's a number of folks that sit on the executive board, and he is president. Ms. Lena Young-Green is a member at large, and there's another number of members. Where's Lena? 8? 9? Is there 8 or 9 members on the board, Ms. Green? You don't know? Okay. She doesn't know. I think it's 8 or 9 based on the seating that I've seen there.
Right.
And, I can get, Mr. Ricky, or I can certainly get back with you with that. But the board voted, and I'm sure there were some nays because Ms. Green's on the board,
Right,
so
no, I
I'm quite
know.
sure she voted against it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were some nays, but the board voted to agree, to make the agreement and not oppose the development.
Okay, and you understood what Mr. Miranda said, that, we have no power to maintain or control any agreement that's made between you and anyone else outside of this chamber?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further for rebuttal, sir?
No, sir.
Any comments from City Council? Questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Second. We have a motion to close by Councilman Maniscalco, a second by Councilman Cohen. All in favor? Any opposed? What is the pleasure of council?
You can see where it goes. I move an ordinance being presented for first reading consideration, an ordinance rezoning property in the general vicinity of 414 and 418 East Emily Street in the city of Tampa, Florida, and more particularly described in Section 1 from zoning district classification RM16, residential multifamily, to PD plan development, congregate living facility, group care facility large, providing an effective date.
I'll second it for further discussion.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Cohen, a second by, in discussion, did you wish to discuss it all?
Well, I want to see what, if the council has any other, because I see a lot of papers moving, but no lips churning.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a motion by Councilman Cohen, a second by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Yay.
I think he was going to have some discussion
Oh.
on that, and I wasn't sure if you were.
I didn't know that you all wanted more discussion, because there's
The issue.
contract given to us that we're not, that shouldn't be part of the hearing. We have nothing to do with contracts.
Well, and
Two separate entities make contracts and presented to us. That's like throwing water over the dam. You can't recover. We can't even get involved in a lawsuit because it doesn't concern the citizens of the city, because there's two private entities, not us.
Right. And you know, Mr. Miranda, if I could too, one of the things that happens is that whenever you have one of those agreements, and we've had them before, and people have come up here and they said, well, we grudgingly agreed to it based on certain conditions, but we didn't even have anyone seem to be in favor of it that was from that board. And that's what I was a little bit confused about,
Well,
because
I don't know, the board was then if I understand it correctly, the board did not approve or deny, if I
Right.
remember the beginning of the hearing.
Right.
I would just say that the difficulty that I think there is with this application is there is a lot of trepidation about it, but I think there's a question as to whether or not there's competent substantial evidence on the record to justify a denial. And there are no waivers. And the fact that the Civic Association made the agreement and decided not to take a position on the matter is not helpful in providing ammunition for a council member to be in opposition to the application.
I agree. Any further comments? Okay. We will then vote on Councilman Cohen's motion, seconded by Councilman Miranda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Motion carried with Reddick being absent, Capeen being absent at vote, and Suarez voting no. Second reading and adoption to be held on April 18th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, now we move on to item number 9.
Mary Samaniego, item number 9 is REZ 18-124. It's an application for 3916 West Millen Avenue for rezoning from RS60 to plan development for multifamily residential.
Jennifer Malone with your Planning Commission. This is located in the South Tampa Planning District. Level C evacuation zone. 2 HART routes serve the subject site.
Ms. Malone, if you could hold on a second, it sounds like we've got a lot of noise coming in here. It's kind of hard to hear you.
I will certainly. Let me know when I should proceed.
I think you're good.
Okay, I'm going to continue, but if at any point you don't hear me, just let me know, and I will stop. So we are north of Henderson Avenue. This is Grady Elementary School to the south. This is Grady, and Mullen is where the subject site is located. And I can zoom in.
You're fine. I mean, an irritant is permissible.
The adopted future land use of the subject site is residential 20. That is on Mullen Avenue. It is also seen on the adopted future land use map on Morrison. To the south is the blue, that's public, that is the school I pointed out earlier, that's Grady Elementary School. But all of that brown is the residential 20. We did find this consistent with the comprehensive plan. Based on the interesting land use nature of the site, I did a little bit of digging, and I found our preliminary subsector plan from 1979. This is the approximate location of the site. It was designated low, medium density residential back then. The yellow is low density residential. The low, medium density residential land use designation back in 1979 had the same density as the residential 20 today. So this has a very long history of being adopted on the subject site. So we did find it consistent with the comprehensive plan. We have numerous policies about promoting different housing types within the city of Tampa where they're compatible. This helps with Tampa's growing population, providing housing for the population projected out to 2040, which is what our comprehensive plan does. So based on those policies and the adopted future land use and the history of the subject site, we did find it consistent. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from council?
Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. For this application, city staff has received quite a few letters of opposition. I believe that they've been sent also to city council members, but I was not clear. Some were, some weren't. So I wanted to clarify, make sure that the record is clear. So I made copies for the city attorney, the clerk, and city council members. There's approximately 50 letters in here.
Did you read them all?
No, sir. Okay, so this application is a rezoning request from RS60 to PD, multifamily residential, for four multifamily dwellings within one building. The surrounding property, whoa, hold on. This is Church, this is Morrison. There's a school to the south. There's a Catholic school to the far east across Church. Here's the subject property in green. It's currently zoned RS60, as well as the majority of the surrounding property is also RS60. The property to the south is a duplex in the RM12 zoning district, and then catty corner from the site is an existing RM12 zoning district. Again, as Jennifer explained, this block, the block next to it, and then the further block to the west are all in the R20 land use category, which allows for consideration up to the RM16, or I'm sorry, the RM18 zoning district. I'm going to take you on a quick tour of the surrounding area. Here's the subject property. It's currently a single-family house. Here's across the street from the subject property. That's across Grady. Is a single-family house. Here is catty corner from the property, a single-family house at 4001. Across the street on Mullen, a single-family house. Continuing to the east, single-family houses. And then directly behind the property, again in that RM12 zoning district, is a duplex, because you can see the two doors here. On this piece of property, the applicant is proposing one building with 4 dwelling units. They're townhome style. Here is the elevation of the building. When this original application came forward to staff, they had all 4 of the driveways and all 4 of the buildings facing Grady. In an effort to try to be more compatible with the existing single-family development pattern in the area, we strongly suggested, and the developer agreed to, rotate, so 2 units are facing this way and 2 units are facing on Mullen Avenue. The proposed setbacks are north 15 feet, south 7 feet, west 10 feet, and east 7 feet. The overall proposed height is 35 feet, which is a standard for residential zoning districts. There are some changes between the first and second reading from land development, just a minor correction of the title block. Natural resources has some corrections to the tree table. The only waiver that's being required or requested is to section 165D to contribute to the trust fund for mitigation trees. This site plan meets all other applicable zoning standards. And again, as Jennifer stated, and I tried to state just for the public, because I know there's a lot of members of the public that wrote into staff, and I think, so it's clear, this block, the block next to it, and the block further to the west have been in the multifamily residential land use category since at least the 1970s. So these blocks have always been slated for increased density. But I believe these are the only two rezonings that have actually occurred. So the developer, the applicant in this instance, is wanting to invoke the allowances within the R20 land use category to increase the intensity as envisioned by the comprehensive plan. There's been some discussion I've had with the public about the compatibility issue. With zoning and land use, there are two approaches that you can take, and this is how I explain it to the public. You can have an existing development pattern that the city wants to maintain, so you put a land use category in that area so that pattern will maintain. The other approach is that you can have an existing development pattern that you want to transition to a different development pattern, so you change the land use category. So this area has been single-family residential in the distant past, but a higher intensity land use category was placed on it in an effort for the single-family houses to be removed and increased intensity residential development to occur. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Any questions from council? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Malone?
As staff, I have one more point I'd like to make I didn't get to earlier. When I was going through and Mary did a great job of reiterating the point I was trying to make about the historic comprehensive plan. This is text from the Horizon 2000 Tampa Comprehensive Plan, which was adopted back in the early 80s. And when they were looking at the subsector, which was in subsector B3 at the time, they did point out that on Morrison, at least, just west of Henderson Boulevard, there were several blocks of duplex units, which is still the pattern today. And so when they drew that residential, what is now the residential 20, I believe that they saw some existing characteristics as well as what could be envisioned in the future when we were deciding those future land use categories and the future growth pattern of the city. So I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilman
Those
Randall.
dwellings were built in the 40s and 50s, weren't they?
It does say actually in here that the majority of the housing stock was built in the 50s in the subsector. Most, and I'm quoting, most if not all of the residential structures were built after 1950.
Yeah, because I remember not the 50s so well. I remember the 30s, no, but...
I don't remember any of it.
Well,
I remember the 80s.
You read better than I do. But no, I worked for many years in 3825 Henderson Boulevard, so I remember going through Grady when there was no traffic, when there was one little, stop sign, and I remember the post office on Henderson and the vitamin shop, and all that's gone now. I remember all that, so I know exactly where the area is.
Yep. And we did identify some of that pattern within this, and I can answer any more questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, applicant.
Good evening, Council. I'm David Nikui, the engineer and planner with Capital Design and Engineering, responsible for development of this project on 3916 Westmoreland Avenue. Capital Design is an infill design and developer company in Tampa area specializing in multifamily development. The proposed project will consist of 4 luxury townhome units with upscale exterior and interior finishes, which, referring to comps and values, will be an equal or greater and price per square feet value of the homes in the neighborhood. As planning just mentioned, the property is located right north of West Morrison Street, and the whole row of duplexes are located right south of the property. Oh, okay. And as you see right south of the property on Morrison, you see a row of duplexes. And the property adjacent in the south has an existing zoning of RM12, which based on square footage would allow, without any request for rezoning, to up to 3 units or multifamily. The same scenario for the property located on the corner of Morrison and Church Street. Also, as has been mentioned in staff report, there are other mixed-use properties about 600 feet from the discussed location up to about 8-story building. So there are a mix of land uses, a mix of zoning in the vicinity of this property. When we first started to design this project, we went through a few round of reviews with the city staff, and we narrowed down the building. We increased the setbacks, the backyards, the front driveways. We rotated 2 of the units to face Mullen, so it would look in harmony and in place with the neighborhood. Based on the land use 9.12, which land use policy 9.1.2, which encourages sensitive design and site planning, we did all our effort to basically cover this policy, and we got the comment of consistency from the staff as well. We believe that this design would be in harmony with the duplexes in the area and also with adjacent property and houses neighboring next door. As a matter of fact, this is the rendering, looking at it from Mullen, facing it north. This is what the sketch looks like, and if you look at the next door neighbor, 3914, we try to match basically what we have right next door, a 2-story 3914 with a 2-story 3916. This has 2 double-car garage, and this has 3-car garage. Land use policy 1.218 talks about promoting harmony in the visual relationship and transition between new and older buildings. And that's what we have tried to cover within our design. We have met all the city criteria, including zoning, planning, transportation, water, sewer, and stormwater, and we feel we are aligned with city goals to increase density. We strongly believe that this project will add value to the neighborhood, increase the diversity of infill development, increase the tax base, promote economic growth, which results in improvement of our road, aging infrastructure, sewer, and water systems. We would like to kindly request the approval of this project from the council, and I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Nothing further from the applicant? Nothing further? From you?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to take public comment on item number 9. Yeah, and now how many folks here within this room plan on speaking this evening? If you could raise your hands. Okay? Okay. So let's go ahead and begin. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes, unless if you have permission from other people to take your time. What we would all ask is that to not be, I guess, overly repetitive, and your 3 minutes are your maximum entitlement generally. But if you wish to take less than that, that's marvelous. There you go. Go ahead.
Chair, could I make a suggestion?
Yes,
that
sir.
we have folks line up on both sides?
A fine
and
suggestion.
then just take turns going back and forth? And
I believe all these folks over here are going to speak who are lined up. If you are going to speak, go ahead and line up and begin to make a line so we can have an idea. Go ahead, sir.
I have some documents to submit for the record and some extra time, actually.
Chair, excuse me for a second. Chair, you may want to check and make sure anyone that has not already been sworn in be sworn in, because we did move people in.
Anybody here been sworn in who has, or strike that, not been sworn in who intends to speak?
Anyone here that has not been sworn in that wants to speak? Okay, we got one here. Anyone else?
And we're going to have people trickling in, so, yeah, I mean,
If you haven't been sworn in, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Reale, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes.
He has a full sheet here of names on the speaker waiver form. He's allowed up to 7, so I'm going to call them in order. Please acknowledge if you're here and you're going to waive your opportunity to speak. Joanne Lado? Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Suzanne Swartz? Here. Thank you. Aline Pauley? Here. Thank you. Laurie Somson? Somson, thank you. Krista Courier? Are you going to speak?
I'm just passing out with him.
Okay. Brittany Johnson? Thank you. And Margaret Drumster? Here. Okay, all these people are going to waive their time. A total of 10 minutes, please.
Good evening, council members. My name is Kevin Reale. I'm representing a number of the property owners in the area, as you can see from the time I was given. I work for Phelps Dunbar, 100 South Ashley Drive, Tampa, Florida. We do appreciate the staff recommendation and understand that staff approval is based on some of the provisions in the comprehensive plan. However, there are a number of provisions in the comprehensive plan which this plan development would not meet, and there are a number of provisions in the code that this plan is inconsistent with. So starting specifically here, there's no substantial competent evidence in the staff's report that the plan meets the certain provisions of the comprehensive plan and that it should be a plan development vice Euclidean rezoning, and that'll be a significant part of my presentation. There's also no substantial competent evidence that the request is consistent with the existing trending development patterns, and that's what we're going to show. Starting with some of the provisions of the comprehensive plan, and I'm going to go over these rather quickly because they are a little bit repetitive in what they cover, but the comprehensive plan, which the council noted earlier in voting down a similar application, encourages higher density that is compatible with surrounding character. I'm going to switch to a visual here while I discuss this. This is the 4-block area, and this here represents the area on the comprehensive plan that allows a higher density. The new use would be incompatible with the existing character because the existing character is single family. The vast majority, so every house marked here in blue was built in 1948. Then for a 60-year period, the only change in any of these structures were the 2 orange ones. So we had a 60-year period with essentially no development. Now all of these red structures are structures that were built in the last 10 years. So after 60 years of no development, the trend in the last 10 years has been to build single-family homes. That's the development pattern that we have in the area, and all of those are single-family homes. Additionally, the row of duplexes that the applicant relies on to say that this is a multifamily area, the duplexes with, say, 2 zonings are legal non-conforming as the zoning doesn't support that anymore. And additionally, I shouldn't say that, that's incorrect, not most, 43% have been converted to single family. So the trend has been away from those duplexes. Those duplexes have been slowly converting to single family uses. So the development pattern in the comp plan is inconsistent with the development pattern that exists there. Additionally, land use policy 9.3.5 suggests that the more dense uses should be on the periphery. So I'm going to shift to a different picture here. It's very hard to see here, so I'll point it out, but where my fingers are here, these are RM12 zonings. It's a slightly different color that the shading doesn't show very well. But those 2 exist on the periphery. If this was to be approved, it would be a more intense use than both of those, surrounded on the other 3 sides by a less intense use. And so it would be actually an island of more dense use, not on the periphery of what is in the existing area and what the zoning currently supports. Moving on with other provisions of the comprehensive plan that are inconsistent, we're supposed to be minimally disruptive to the existing trend of development. What we have here is a trend of development that is already single family, and whatever multifamily is in the area is trending towards single family. And then the existing areas are predominantly occupied by multifamily. That is in Land Use Policy 9.6.3. So multifamily is supposed to be developed where multifamily exists. And the idea that the duplexes to the south are what we're basing this on is just inaccurate, because those are being changed away from duplexes to single-family homes. And the single family is being transitioned out of the area. So it is inconsistent with the current pattern development and inconsistent with the multifamily trend in the area. The comprehensive plan also asks that the development create transitions in development intensity. So this would be where we have a density increasing slowly as you go in. And if we switch back to the map I showed earlier, this will be a more intense zoning. Instead of branching out with a similar intensity and then increasing the intensity slowly, it's going to be more intense than everything around it, including the area that's already been upzoned to a more dense use. Additionally, and I'll touch on this in a minute when we talk about the land development code, but the compatibility with single-family development, when multifamily is developed, we're supposed to develop that in a way that's compatible with the surrounding development. And this plan exceeds the setback limits for single-family character. Understandably, they're not trying to do single-family. But additionally, it exceeds the setback of like zoning designations. So RM12 and RM16, their setbacks don't comply with that. So essentially, a PD is being used to try and get around other provisions of the land development code. Additionally, it avoids a transitional density land use policy 973 because it's an island of more dense use if it's approved. Real quick, just a couple other visuals. These duplexes keep coming up. That's one of the duplexes. Here's another duplex. All these duplexes could pass as single-family homes if you look at them. They don't have the bulk that this that this development would have. And so to rely on the duplexes is not really a good way to show the development pattern. All right, moving on to the land development code. The purpose of a planned development, I'm going to paraphrase here, is to allow development on a lot that has a unique characteristic where other zoning districts cannot accommodate. So this development violates this provision of the land development code. There are no physical or environmental features that would require a PD. There are no transportation issues that would require a PD. There's no access issues that require a PD. Additionally, other zoning districts can accommodate. If you ignore setbacks, this exact development would work in an RM16 zoning, a Euclidean rezoning. So the land development code says that you should develop as a Euclidean rezoning because it would fit inside that zoning designation. And then what you're supposed to do is fit within the setbacks. If they were to do this development in an RM16, they would have to come and try and get a variance because it's not going to meet the setback requirements for RM16. So by doing a PD, they're avoiding that, and it's violating the land development code because the purpose of a PD is not met here in any capacity. There's no substantial competent evidence that a PD district is warranted here. It's worth noting that a mixture of uses is also there. I had that on the slide, but we're not mixing any uses here. To explain a little bit more what I'm talking about with the comparable zoning districts. So RM16 allows 4 dwelling units, would allow 4 dwelling units on a similarly sized lot. And if they were to develop with RM16, it would require a 25-foot front setback and a 15-foot backyard setback. Now, as you see on the right, the plan here has a 15-foot front setback and a 7-foot backyard setback. Now, it does have 3 additional feet in the corner, but the PD here, if approved, would essentially be a way of getting around a variance where Euclidean rezoning would work. And then also for densities, I don't have RM16 on here, but to the north, the east, and the west, you have 1 dwelling unit per lot for 6,000 square feet per dwelling unit. What you have to the south that is an RM12 is 3,600 square feet per dwelling unit, and then this would actually be even more intense than that at 2,752. So we're talking about a development that's more intense than anything around it. We're talking a development that should be done through a Euclidean rezoning, and we're talking about a development that's inconsistent with the development pattern. There's also a number of issues with trees that I'm going to brush over because they can be corrected, but it is worth pointing out that our code in Tampa is very in-depth with trees. The tree table on the site plan and the original comments from staff were that some of the trees should remain. The applicant then tried to save one tree, and that tree was then told by staff it has to be removed because there's not enough space for it. The tree table would actually give them no credit because the only tree on the entire property that will remain is in the right-of-way. And the debit table will have to be increased to 15, and when you add the vehicle use area, they're going to have to do 22 plantings. They don't have any space to do that. So they do require a waiver to pay into the mitigation bank for trees. Now, the council is obviously allowed to give that waiver, but this is just an extreme example where that request would be sort of the maximum that you could request because the only tree they're saving is in the right-of-way where they can't build. In sum, we request the council deny because it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, it violates the land development code, and is inconsistent with the area height bulk placement provisions of the surrounding properties. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Good evening. My name is Mark Heilig. I live at 3914 West Mullen with my wife and our 6 children. It's my oldest daughter, Gwen. If one good has come from this application, we've had an expert lesson in civics for our children, some of whom have now created the city council cry room, you'll see out here. My eldest is very excited because our house was just on TV during Mr. Nkoe's presentation. And I think what was interesting about his presentation is if you look at the front of his design and the front of our home, they do look sort of similar, only insofar as a playing card and the edge of a brick look very similar, right? When you turn them to the side, though, they look a lot different. Here's his elevation, if I could use this, and here is the front of the elevation that you saw. It was much prettier in his picture. But this is the side that faces our home. And it goes 15 feet in front of our home all the way to the back land line. And I can tell you there is a 2-story playhouse right here with a nice slide and a trampoline right here. And I counted 11 windows watching my 6 children play in the backyard. We have shared many of the concerns all of our neighbors share. But and honestly, the city can't stay the same forever. I grew up in this neighborhood. I remember the post office too, Councilman Miranda. And my son is at Tampa Bay Little League right now because he wouldn't come to city council because he had to catch using the glove I play with, right? I get it. We can't stay the same. But this is a drastic change. And we brought our family back to this neighborhood so they could walk to Christ the King, so they could walk and play in the streets that I played in when I was a kid. They can walk to my dad's house on Zeller Street. But also because these are the last big backyarded lots in South Tampa. And candidly, when you have 6 children, as you have heard them while we've been sitting here, you have to be able to say, go outside and play, right? And that's a great benefit of our lot. And I don't feel like saying, go outside and play so long as all of these various new neighbors have their shades drawn. So I'll yield the rest of my time, and thank you for your consideration.
And as the pounding of this gavel reflects, we are not to have, please, any clapping. Thank you very much. And if I may, to the young lady who was here, what's your name?
My name's Gwen.
Gwen?
Yes.
Well, lovely name. Thank you for coming.
And I have to say, Chair, sir, I think you need to watch more city council meetings and less fathering. You got a lot of kids. You got a lot of kids.
There's something in the water. There's something in the water.
Good evening. My name is Daniel, and I'm the president of the Swan Estates Neighborhood Association. I'm speaking on behalf of the entire neighborhood.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. Did you say your full name? Your name
Daniel Correa.
Correa.
Yeah,
Thank you.
C-U-R-R-E-A.
Thank you.
I am an architect. I am an adjunct professor at USF School of Community Design. So this is, part of my neighborhood where my kids play. And I just want to point out that in addition to everything that has been said, I'm going to omit half of my presentation. But in this particular image, you can see that we have all types of RM16, RM16 over here, RM16, which means that we have a neighborhood that is well gentrified. It's not like we're trying to admit people to come from other places and be a part of our neighborhood. This is an island that is being proposed, and with that, it's really going to bring a lot of developers. You're multiplying times 4 the ability of a developer to say, oh, I want a piece of that cake for sure. As an architect, I get approached endless times. Can you maximize my profit? I'll say, sure, as long as I meet the criteria of the code, and we'll meet that standard, and we'll do the best that we can. This is not what that is, and it's not just because it's my neighborhood and I just want things in another place. We want RM16. We want density. The city needs density. We need the tax dollars. So I get it. I'm not against development. I am not. My entire livelihood depends on well thought out development. But there's one thing that hasn't been brought out. But about 2 years ago, we had just a magnificent rain. Our house got flooded all the way up to 1 foot, and my house is on the highest side of Swan States. In here, this is reported street flooding from City of Tampa's website, and it's showing very clearly that we have all kinds of flooding all around here. We all are very familiar. It's, all the news people will come down to this corner, say, hey, we're flooding. This is extremely close to that area, which means that we're not meeting that requirement. We are making it really, really hard for us to solve our issue of a very, very low infrastructure. In here, what I'm trying to show is we have all the kids from the neighborhood will gather around Grady, and including my kids, my wife, and I sometimes will walk all the way to Grady. And what will happen in here is that we will have now 2 sidewalks and another 2 sidewalks, but this is just the first development. Once that happens in that street, it'll continue to happen all throughout Grady, and it'll start spreading like a finger. We don't want that development. Lastly, just for everybody, there's that elevation that is extremely ugly next to the development. And one last thing. Sorry, I can yield, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Mr. Patterson has a long list. The first 7 names I'll call off, and just if you could, actually it was good when people called out that I could hear them. Carol Haggerty? Carol Haggerty? Here. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Zach Neward? Here. Thank you. Frank Sierra? Here. Thank you. Cassandra Pauly? Here. Thank you. Danielle Chiavello, did I say that correctly? Sicarello, I'm sorry, thank you. Tracy Singleton? Thank you. And Greg Coven? Thank you. 7 names called off who are waiving their time. A total of 10, please. 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, City Council, for your time. My name is James Patterson. I reside at 4108 West Cleveland Street, approximately 9 blocks north of this neighborhood. And Swan Estates is my neighborhood. It is my home. I'm also a qualified certified land planner with an AICP designation. This is what I do for a living. And so when I saw the variance, I was very concerned. My youngest child walked this way to Grady. We walked as a family this way to Grady Elementary. This is an extreme overbuild. I would ask that you deny this. On the grounds of many of the things that's already been said, I'll try not to repeat what's already been said to respect your time. I would like to remind the council that simply a future land use component does not automatically guarantee a permittability. So as we go through this, you'll see in your copy the original comprehensive plan that Ms. Malone spoke of earlier showed 2 blocks that were zoned, that a future land use that allowed multifamily. I would present to you that this is not the typical pattern to do multifamily development or future land use. The duplexes in this area were pre-existing prior to any land uses being placed in the city of Tampa. The only reason that these 3 blocks were zoned or had a future land use of multifamily was the pre-existence of 1,500 square foot duplexes along the north side of Morrison. I spoke to Mr. Hay, David Hay, earlier a couple of weeks ago regarding this, and he even was surprised that the south side of Mullen was had a future land use that was multifamily. Every structure in these 3-block radius between Church and Lois and between Morrison and Mullen were all constructed between 1948 and 1949. So prior to the comprehensive plan ever being first admitted, there were single-family homes along the entire south side of Mullen had already been built out. For every 8 homes on Mullen, there are 7 homes, pre-existing duplexes on Morrison. I would like to point out, this is the future land use plan. The area here in red is the 3 blocks that I'm speaking about. Typical planning practices which are utilized today would not have designated 3 end-to-end Res 20 FLU blocks bifurcating an existing Res 10 single-family detached neighborhood. The FLU designation merely exists as a result of the pre-existence of the duplexes along Morrison. As I said, David Hay actually was a little surprised about the Mullen zoning. And then when I expressed that I have already spoken to many of the property owners on these 3 blocks, and I've explained, they've asked me, why is this multifamily allowed to even be considered, this massive, enormous complex? And I said, because the future land use will allow some multifamily, and so it opens a door. It's not automatic, it still needs to be approved, and it doesn't even meet the requirements of any other zoning has been previously presented. And so David Hay actually suggested to me that if the neighborhood is against this, and against any future development, you can actually propose a comp plan amendment if the neighborhood is unanimous and property by property could request that their properties be down planned. And that's exactly what we've started. I have 26 of the properties already committed. I've not been able to reach the rest of the 45 homes. There's the existing structure that's being proposed. There's a home that's being built right now. It does not have a new owner yet. There's a home that's been in court for a long time due to a very unfortunate accident. Of the remaining 42 homes, I have 26 already committed on paper with signature saying, please help me down plan my home. When I expressed the desire to do this, it was unanimous. That is in process right now, which is another reason why I would ask you to withhold this and deny this, to give us the opportunity to down plan these 3 blocks. As far as the staff report comments, I'm going to quickly go through these. You've got these. This is page 6 of your report. Page 4 of the staff report, section 27-136, the purpose states what the purpose that we're here and the purpose that we would come before you. Item number 1 under that, it says promote the efficient, sustainable use of land infrastructure with careful consideration of potential adverse impacts to on-site natural elements surrounding the impacted neighborhoods. Staff hasn't commented on any of those under there. Adverse impact, all the trees will be removed as you've heard prior. Another adverse impact is that the intersection floods every single time it rains. I'd like to put this before you. This is a picture. This is a picture looking southeast from the intersection at the side yard or the west side of this property. This is after a morning rain, a couple of hours after morning rain, just a couple of weeks ago. Not only is the street flooded, but you'll see right here the side yard, the pervious area of this site, also has standing water of several inches. Anytime it rains, this entire intersection goes underwater, and even the pervious areas hold water because the groundwater table is so high. Here is another picture of the intersection right after a rain. This is the subject property here. And I propose one more picture showing his variance sign. The entire frontage of his property all the way across the street is ankle-deep water hours after the rain. This is a huge problem at this intersection. Adding 4 driveways will not contribute to this. Adding a 5,700 square foot footprint of a house, even proposed with the proposed on-site underground storm drainage system to withhold a half-inch of rain, it will not sustain if the groundwater is saturated. There's nowhere for the water to go, and it's already a huge existing problem. The City of Tampa's Stormwater Technical Report actually calls this, you'll see this on page 8 of your report, it actually is considered a commercial under the Stormwater Technical Standards because of the enormous size. It also says that pervious pavers, which are labeled on this existing site plan right now, are not allowed to be considered for stormwater management. Now, the plan does provide for that and an underground stormwater pipe that is perforated, but the existing pavers will not be permitted for stormwater management. Any developer that doesn't have to put pervious pavers won't. They're too expensive. And so now we've got 4 2-car driveways going onto the street that's already inundated and is already flooded after every rain. On page 9, you'll see that item 2. On page 4 and 5 of the staff report allow the integration of different uses of land use. We've already heard this. The proposed heated square footage of this one structure will be over 10,000 square feet in the dwelling unit. The maximum allowable in R60 is 6,000 square feet of heated space. If that's what's considered the dwelling unit, I've put the definitions out of the code there for you. The largest home in the area is still under 6,000 square feet, with the majority of the homes being between 1,500 and 3,000 square feet. This is a 10,000 square foot structure that is excluding of the garages, approximately 10,000 feet. Mr. Heilig's house to the east is 3,321 square feet. The home across the street, 1,500 square feet. The home across the street to the west, or to the south, 1,564 square feet. And the home across to the west, 2,200 square feet. Since the year 2000, 13 homes have been constructed on Mullen, new homes, and 9 new homes have been constructed on Morrison within this 3-block section that has the future land use of Res 20. I'd like to point out these pictures here. About 10 years ago, and I know my time is running short, about 10 years ago at the corner of of Morrison and Lois, this side yard here, this lot here was proposed to be split into 2. And there were 2 enormous homes that were erected side by side. Those homes never were completed, and those homes were torn down, and a new property owner built a luxury home on there, thank goodness. The enormity of this structure absolutely looks out of place in this neighborhood. And if you'll see, looking further down, if you've ever played Monopoly and you've got that one person that puts a hotel, you hate him. And that's what is happening. If you put these 2 structures together, the structure that Mr. Nakui is proposing is 2 feet longer than both of those structures combined and 14 feet wider on a lot that is 7 feet narrower. It's absolutely inappropriate for this neighborhood. Page 5 of the staff report, encourage flexible development, reduces transportation needs, conserves energy, and maximizes and preserves the natural resources. It fails to reduce the transportation needs, it multiplies it times 4. Fails to conserve energy, multiplies it times 4. The proposal fails in maximizing the preservation of natural resources. As you've already heard, all 7 on-site trees have been proposed that will need to come down. In addition, there are 3 existing trees in the right-of-way that will have to come down to accommodate for the driveways. Only 1 tree out of 14 trees or 13 trees will remain. If I did the math right, or 11 trees. In the key characteristics within the comprehensive plan of R10 and R20, it's listed for both R10 and R20 that the street tree canopy provides for shade and enhances neighborhood character and identity. That's a goal of the future land use. Having every one of these trees taken down is preposterous. The proposed infill is not consistent. There have been 4 single-family homes built on Morrison. In place of duplexes, there have been 4 additional duplexes that have been transferred to single-family homes by removing the center wall. It is not an infill trend to have higher density in that area. The density is actually being reduced. I'd like to point out one other thing. As far as waivers, it says that the individual hardships, the last item on staff's report said that the individual hardships will be suffered as a failure of council to grant a waiver. I would remind you that there are no hardships that will be suffered. In fact, the City Council, under the Variance Review Board, says that a hardship or practical difficulty does not result from the actions of the applicant. A self-created hardship or practical difficulty shall not justify a variance. It should not justify a waiver. And then last but not least, the scriptures. In 1 Corinthians 10:23 says everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And so I would ask that you consider and deny this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, please.
Ms. Rosen has 5 names. Just please acknowledge your presence. Bethany Arvidsson. Thank you. Mike Fanning. Thank you. Justin Rosen. Thank you. Stephen Jensen. Thank you. And Alicia Kritz. Thank you. For a total of 8 minutes, please.
Okay. Good evening, councilmen and women. My name is Mara Rosen, and I live at 3908 West Mullen Avenue. From the moment I received notice, I have been working to prevent this from destroying the character of our neighborhood and causing issues with infrastructure, flooding, and pedestrian safety. I have a petition with 393 signatures for your review. I, along with our community, are vehemently opposed. With all due respect, I fundamentally disagree with the staff report that this rezoning should be approved. There is credible and substantial evidence that this application should be denied. It is not in conformity or agreement with Section 27-136, Item 6 of the Tampa Municipal City Code, and therefore it should be denied. To benefit others, I will quote from item 6. This rezoning should, quote, promote and encourage development where appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding impacted neighborhood, built environment, and existing geography, end quote. It does none of the above. It is inappropriate in location. Mullen Avenue consists of 100% single-family detached homes. This is too deep into the neighborhood. Other developments of more than 2 units in Swan Estates are located no further west of Church Avenue or south of Cleveland Street. It would be entirely out of place. Just because this development can be considered does not mean that it should be allowed. It is not consistent, complementary, compatible, or appropriate in character, and is incompatible with the surrounding impacted neighborhood, built environment, and existing geography. Small duplexes on Morrison Avenue to the south should not be used as a basis of comparison of character. This is the side view of the development, and this would be what would be next to it. The duplex directly behind this site is 3913 Morrison. It is approximately 1,500 square feet and 1 story, similar in size to both older single-family homes and duplexes in the immediate area. The proposed building, as James said, is significantly larger. All but 2 duplexes are zoned RS60, and many have been converted to single-family homes, or new homes have been constructed on the properties. Homes on Mullen have a setback of 25 feet. The proposed development has a 10-foot setback variance. This will obstruct views down the street and clash with the character and aesthetics of the neighborhood. 0 homes on Mullen take up the entire lot. 100% of homes have backyards. This will not. The tree requirement is not met. Part of our neighborhood character are the many large old trees. We need trees to combat flooding. Once again, with all due respect, city staff who recommend this development are doing so from an entirely different context. They don't live on the street, and so therefore they cannot have the same awareness of issues that occur and are dependent upon weather or time of day, including flooding, vehicular, and pedestrian traffic. This rezoning will cause significant issues with these things. I respectfully request that you deny this application to maintain the character of our neighborhood and quality of life of citizens. I thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this request. I will yield my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michael Tringali. I live at 4008 West Mullen, about 4 houses away from this proposed structure. I've lived in Tampa, my wife and I, all of our adult lives. We raised 3 children here. We came from Beach Park when we finally got all of our children out of the house. Over to Mullen, bought a little 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. We still have room in that house if our kids want to visit us, as long as they don't try to stay. What I would like for you to consider, I have confessed not to reading the comprehensive plan, but I hope somewhere buried within there is a clause for common sense. Anybody who would want to increase the density in this particular area has to be out of their living minds, with all due respect. The Morrison, every morning at 8 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock is a parking lot as the cars line up to release their kids, drop them off in school. The same thing from 1:30 to 3. From the front of Grady all the way almost down to Lois. Cars sit there, they get there early, they park, and then they go one by one. You have Christ the King on the other block in the other direction. You still have the post office there. You have the Little League fall and spring seasons, the tennis courts. You have the play field of Christ the King where there's all the soccer going on. It's busy, busy, busy. There's cars there all the time. There's traffic. Morrison and Church, right? All the time. Now, the important thing, and what I'm here to talk about, is Grady. When you walk down Grady, 7:30 every morning, I walk north to get up to Patch's place to get some breakfast. There's a flood of children coming down Grady. That's the filter, Grady Avenue, right there where they get to the safety of that crosswalk and that crossing guard over there. The other crosswalk is on on Mullen, crossing over Church to get to Christ the King. So you have a flood of kids funneling and filtering right past this structure every morning. You have 8 cars coming out. I guarantee you it'd probably be more like 10 to 12, okay? Backing out of the driveway, They're going to have to plant some trees. They'll come for a variance. Those trees are going to be in the setback. The trees are going to be blocking their view. They're going to be juggling their coffee, reading their cell phones. In a hurry to get to work, they're going to back out of that street. I forgot to mention the little kids. You saw them riding their bikes down the street because the kids are on the sidewalk, right? All of a sudden, the car backs out, whap, okay? We're going to hear it. We're going to know it. We're going to hear the screams of the parents. We're going to see the flashing lights, the sirens. We're going to hear that. You might hear it on the evening news, okay, or read about it in a newspaper. But that's what we're dealing with. It's a foolhardy, dangerous proposition to increase that amount of cars on that corner as under the current conditions with the school children. It's going to be a disaster, and I hope you please consider that. I'm begging you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Margarita Lopez. I live at 3918 West Swan. My child attended Grady. Just my concerns are today the schools that are there that we already mentioned, Tri-State-King and Grady, a school that's already at capacity, as well as the two parks. And even further down, we have Swan Circle Park as well. The bottom line is I see a lot of pedestrian traffic as well as children on bikes and scooters. Not all the streets have sidewalks. Some of them do. Some of the sidewalks are a little bit uneven, so I see children going off the sidewalk to ride their scooter or bike onto the street. So the bottom line is that the pedestrian traffic remains as it is with a lot of children. Trader Joe's hasn't really improved the situation. As you know, that's a concern. So we have a lot of cars. I see a lot of people speeding. And being that I'm so close to the corner of Grady and Swan, I live right on Swan, I see a tremendous amount of traffic, volume traffic, avoiding Trader Joe's as they exit out Swan, headed eastbound. The concern that others have mentioned very well in detail, it also sets a precedent. So if we do allow this development to take place, in spite of all the concerns we have, there's a likelihood that another development such as this one will also infiltrate our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Keys, and I live at 4210 La Palma Court. However, I lived at 4014 Mullen Avenue for 22 years and raised my children there. I sold my single-family 1,200 square foot home to a builder who knocked down the home and built a two-story 3,400 square foot home there. There are many new single-family homes on Mullen, Inman, McKay, Morrison, Swan, the whole area. Also, there are many older single-family homes built in the 1950s that have been renovated, added on to over the years, and are charming and beautiful. Both the newer and older single-family homes work on all these blocks and blend very well. The consistent factor is that they are all single-family homes, new and old together, and it works. Townhouses do not and will never have a place in this immediate area. They don't fit well with the character of the neighborhood. I am also a realtor with Coldwell Banker and have sold 4 houses on Mullen Avenue. Buyers want to live in this area because of the large lots, the ability to build a big house or have a big backyard and put in a pool. I currently have a house listed at 4012 Mullen Avenue. Due to this proposal on the table, I've had to disclose the issue at hand to potential buyers. They all want to go running. All the buyers who have come to see my listing at 4112 Mullen have stated they do not want to live in a block with townhouses. They have specifically said they only want to live in a neighborhood with other single-family homes, which is why they are considering their area to begin with. I reached out to 4 of the builders I work with on a regular basis who have built homes on Mullen Avenue or in the immediate area, and here is what they had to say. Number 1, I'm certain every resident would be in opposition. This won't work there. 2, that proposal is certainly not compatible with the neighborhood. 3, the property appraiser map clearly shows that all lots are large single-family detached lots. 4, being a builder, I'm okay with multifamily structures, but that townhouse proposal definitely does not belong on Mullen or any on that corner, or any divided lots on that corner. My professional opinion is that no matter how upscale or how much money this builder pours into the townhouses, it will have a negative impact on the neighborhood. It will not bring up the value of the neighborhood. They will look crammed into the lot and look horrible. It will definitely bring the property value down for every other owner who surrounds it. Although there are still some duplexes left on Morrison, it's important to note that many of them have been converted, like other people have said, into single-family homes, beautiful homes I might add, or builders have replaced them with single-family homes which have brought up the value in that neighborhood. Several years back, there was a duplex on the corner of 41 Morrison and the owner at that time wanted to divide the lot and build 2 homes facing Clark. City Council at that time, this was years ago, but I watched it, denied the request. And subsequently, the owner moved, and the next owner turned it into a single-family home. I oppose the townhouses or any division of that lot and respectfully ask that you deny this request. It is important to the existing owners, all of us in red, that the neighborhood maintains its character. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
My name's Harvey Bruno. I live at 3910 West Mullen, 3 houses down from this monstrosity here that we're going to try to pass through or not pass through, so I beg of you to not pass it. This home that we're in was purchased by my father-in-law in 1948. He was a serviceman at Dill Air Force Base. He raised 4 kids, 3 nurses and 1 teacher. He'd die again if he saw what's happening now on this street. We can't have this. My wife and I want to voice our opposition to letting this pass through. The rezoning will decrease the value of our homes, increase the traffic on our street, and not fit the personality and the character of our neighborhood. This is a case of greed versus need. We don't need the valuation of our homes. We don't need more saturation of homes. We don't need more traffic on Mullen or Grady, and we don't even have a sidewalk on Mullen. We don't need to lose the character of our neighborhood. Please say no to rezoning this request. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Sue Lashley Thomas. I am here on behalf of the builder. I am also a realtor representing him. I want to give you a picture. This is the house in question. Is it up there? That's the house that we're talking about. I've done a little bit of work with this builder as far as townhomes go. He's building a couple off of Cleveland. What we're looking to do, and we went and walked and talked to a bunch of the neighbors. I know a lot of the people in here probably see me out. There are 14 duplexes directly behind on Morrison on this street. What he's looking to do, we're trying to find living for people that's affordable, luxury townhomes that are in a price range where people can afford to buy, have their families. I would rather have a nice looking townhome like this next to me and have my children out there looking at it than I would rather have them looking at this every single day. The builder's not trying to cause any hardship on anyone. He's planning on putting sidewalks in there so that the children don't have to walk around the corner like they do right now. We want to make it easier and not cause any hardship on anybody in there whatsoever. As far as 2 facing one direction and 2 facing the other, you're talking about, on average, 4 cars on each side. For a family that has 6 family members, that's 6 vehicles for one. You're talking 2 2-car garages plus space to be able to park your cars and 2 to 4 cars in there. You're not going to cause any street parking, any havoc there. You're going to have sidewalks in for the kids to walk around. As far as people backing out, well, that could happen in any neighborhood. I hope everyone uses caution when they back out. We're just trying to improve the neighborhood. I did a survey on the neighborhood. There's a lot of investors, a lot of investment homes on that. There's a lot of renters that live on that street as well. I walked both Mullen and Morrison, tried to knock on a lot of the doors and talk to a lot of the people, trying to make it, along with the builder, to make it so that everybody would make this a smooth transaction and not cause hardship on anyone. I appreciate your time. I hope that you look at the big picture, and also there is a lot of families moving into the Tampa Bay area, and to have housing for everyone. Unfortunately, we can't stop people from coming to Tampa. I like them, but we want to have nice homes for them to live in. We're not looking at putting small little low-end stuff. We're looking at putting 2 nice luxury townhomes on each side, and I think, in my honest opinion, that they will fit in with the community. I appreciate it if you would give this some consideration and please approve this.
If I could, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, are you paid by the builder, or are you it sounds like you're in partnership with them or something.
I'm not. I do work with the builder. I'm paid not from any. When I close on a property, that's when I am paid.
Well, I'm asking the question because of the time constraints that each side of the group has, as opposed to public comment. Are you here representing the applicant? That's the only reason I'm asking.
I'm here representing that this goes through, and I am here on David's behalf as well, because I believe in what he wants to do.
Okay.
I'm
not sure you answered my question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ask me again.
Yeah. just want to make sure because it can become an issue later on. That's
You're
why.
not employed by him. You're an
No, I am
independent
not
Right.
employed
I
by
guess I wanna
David at
make
all.
sure, yeah.
Absolutely, and I work for Keller Williams. I am not employed by him whatsoever.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
My name is John Overton, and I'm with a different builder. I'm Barrett's Builders, and we have 3 properties within a block and a half of this, and I'm here mostly because I'm scared to death. And, you know, I've been building in, yes, I've been building in South Tampa since 2001, which means I've gone through some of the good and some of the bad, and I remember when it was really good, and back in spring of 2006, I was excited. I bought a whole bunch of property. By 2007, I couldn't unload it for free. So it took me 7-8 years just to get back together so I could do it again, and I take saleability very, very seriously. A couple years ago, just as an example, over at, we had one at 4702 Vasconi, which is about a block off of West Shore. And when we finished that, it sat for nearly a year and sold for 6 figures less than what we were hoping to get by a mile. And the biggest complaint we got was the townhomes at the end of the street, and that's why they wouldn't buy our house. We had a 3-car garage. They think garages, we had a 3-car garage. The townhomes at the end of the street were the problem. And they made it abundantly clear. It was a gorgeous house. Loved it. So when I look at this, yeah, it concerns me. I have 3 properties. I only do a handful a year. So if I doing something like this was to have the same problem I had on Vasconia, I'm out of business for good. If I have to sit on these for a year watching these things go down and hundreds of subs be affected, I'd be affected, and I think that, you know, hits me at home. But, you know, that's just bad news. And the first thing, if this goes through, that's happening is every property within a block of that place is going to drop $60,000 to $80,000. I promise you, because I wouldn't pay for it at the prices they're worth now. I would love to have this corner lot in a location like that and do a nice single-family residence that somebody would like. The one at 4101 Mullins just about complete, and I've had a lot of positive feedback. I hope we've done a nice job for this neighborhood. I don't think that this is necessary. I think it's out of place. It's a single-family residence street. The one that's the closest duplex to it, behind it was, you know, that was from 1948. It's not what's current, but, you know, aside from the fact that it would currently hurt every single-family residence in the area because they would have a harder time selling their house. It would probably knock down the property values and the tax rolls. And then it's going to encourage every builder in the region to run in and try to do the same thing and hurt all the other single-family residents in the area. That's what I've got.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, Senate Council. My name is Tom Conley. I've been sworn in. I reside at 3823 West Palmyra Avenue, and I'm the president of the Virginia Park Neighborhood Association. I'm asking that the City Council deny this petition, Res. 18124, for 3916 West Mullen, on the basis that it doesn't support Tampa Code Section 27136, Sub 6, that it does not promote and encourage development where appropriate in location, character, compatibility with the surrounding impacted neighborhoods, built environment, and existing geography. The current zoning designation for this neighborhood is RS60, single family detached, and as can be seen on the map, there are only 2 parcels that are not zoned the RS60, the RM12s in the corners there. The non-conforming property cited by the Hillsborough Planning Commission should not be used as a fact to support the consistent finding, since several of these non-conforming properties, the duplexes that have been mentioned beforehand, are no longer duplexes, but have been made into single-family structures and therefore in compliance with the RS60 zoning designation for the Swan Estates. I thank you for your time and urge that you deny this petition.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, council members. My name is Michael McNabb. I live at 2404 South Clark Avenue. I am the current president of the Palm Sea West Neighborhood Association. I have nothing really new to add to what's been said. I think a lot of things were covered, but I can tell you that our northernmost border is Morrison Avenue on the south side. So some of our 600 members live very, very close to where this project is proposed. And a number of them called me and said, we don't want this, we want to speak in opposition to it.
And that's why I'm here tonight, is to tell you that if this project were proposed in Palmacia West, we would have at least this many people, if not more, here to tell you that this is not in keeping with our neighborhood. It's not in keeping with that neighborhood either. So that's all I have to say. I encourage you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Hi, my name's Carol Ann Bennett. I'm a lifelong resident of South Tampa. I'm the chairperson of the Variance and Land Development Committee of Virginia Park. I'll try to be quick. On page 14 of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, it says that South Tampa has limited growth opportunities because environmental qualities will be compromised by increased urbanization. There's limited access to transportation facilities which would be inefficient to improve, limited opportunities to create more community facilities, open spaces, or services to meet increased demand. It's unstable and it's flood-prone land. This is in the comprehensive plan. It's saying in the 30-year period from 2010 to 2040, they want 97 and 35 new people, residents in South Tampa. So my question is, from 2010 to 2019, how many do we have? Is there anybody here who can answer that question? Because it just seems to me, if the Tampa's own plan is saying this is the number that South Tampa can support, they're saying it's very limited and this is it. We're 2/3 of the way there. How many permits have been approved? How many condos? How many apartments? How many duplexes? How many quadruplexes? How many lot splits? How many residences have been built in the 19 years? How many people do they say 1 person per resident, 4 people per resident? I'm sure they have a number. There should be some way of looking at what has already been approved for South Tampa and saying how close we are to that goal. What if we're over that goal? I mean, I believe it's possible. I live there. I see the growth. I see the thousands of units that have been created in South Tampa in the last 19 years. We could already be at the goal. We could be over the goal. Who here can tell me the answer to that question? Probably it's not being kept track of the way it needs to be, particularly since we're coming so close to the end. I think this is something that needs to be looked at. I ask you to deny this until we have more information to show that it's actually needed. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please. Now, and let me inquire, does anyone else wish to speak here? Anyone else? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm here to bring you a new perspective. I am a new resident to the Tampa area. My name is Alita Lyons. Sorry to clarify. I hail here from Panama City, Florida. And as we sit in this room, you are all concerned about your neighborhood, you know, new developer coming in. It's beautiful. I get that. Sorry. I get that. It's wonderful. But what the builder is proposing isn't just a townhome. It's a place to sustain what is coming. We're already here. We're talking about building these homes, and it's really hard for me to stand up here and comprehend that where I just came from, there are no homes. And that we should all be thankful that we really are even in this situation. And as citizens, we have the opportunity to speak up and sit about it and speak up about it. I would like to clarify, I have not been paid to stand here at all, by any means. I'm not commissioned. I am in the industry, for sure. But I have done a few open houses in some of the applicants' homes. And they are townhomes, but they feel like single residential homes. They are private, they are eco-friendly, and all I am saying is that we are coming, and that part of the reason is why I'm here is because Tampa is growing. Whether you like it or not, it's coming, and what he's proposing isn't far off from what's already here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. No one else here for public comment? Okay. Now, before we go to rebuttal, I was told that did city staff wish to opine on anything? I was told by Mr. Shelby.
Mary Samaniego, Land Development Coordination. I just wanted to clarify some of the things that were said to make sure that the record was straight. There are no variances being requested. This isn't a variance application. It's a rezoning application. Within the PD rezoning application process, you're allowed to ask for waivers as part of that request based on site conditions. The PD itself allows for you to designate specific uses that you want, as well as maximum height and setbacks. So those are not items that require waivers. Those are built into the PD zoning district standards that either are approved or denied.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, next now rebuttal. Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir. Rebuttal, you may.
I want to mention a few things regarding the public comments here. One of the things that was mentioned was about safety of the kids. That's our major concern. And what we proposing in this design is clearly 250 feet of sidewalk. Right now, what you see here in the existing corner of Mullen and Grady, there is no sidewalk. So if I have my kid in the neighborhood, I would be happy to have added sidewalk and my kid go to Grady Elementary and then use the sidewalk to go back home, because I walked the neighborhood. I've seen kids that go on the street. There's absolutely no sidewalk on Mullen. So I'd like to have something that the kids would actually get away from the street and walk on the sidewalk. Regarding the parking issue, and we have gone through this with the transportation department of the city. They are requiring two parking for each unit and a quarter for guest parking, which totals of 9 parking for this development. We have a setback of 18 feet from the where the building starts, and that 18 feet will allow 3 more excess parking when you compare it with the required. So, and also when you look at the length, the distance that we have from the building up to the edge of pavement, we have 38 feet in the north, and we have 34 feet, which an average car length is about 15 and a half feet. And it will, if for example, one of the residents have guests, they could accommodate 2 cars in the garage plus 4 more cars for each unit. And there is a clear line of sight, and apparently, we have gone through this with the city. And in terms of safety of the kids, or maybe have an accident, we have looked at it through several rounds. In terms of stormwater and flooding issue, we have calculated that we could have an ADS system or underground vault, or but any of these technologies can be added when we are in the permitting process. But we have found out that it is possible to mitigate all the stormwater issues on this development. Regarding the Euclidean and RM 16 or 18 zoning that was mentioned earlier, initially when we started designing this project, we came up with the idea of even having 3-story and have a less footprint in the area, and that was also brought up. But the issue with 3-story again is it was non-harmonic with the neighbors. Everybody's talking about being an oddball, but what we wanted to do, we wanted to keep it 2-story to be aligned with the next door neighbor, and that's how it led to a PD rezoning request, not RM 18. Just to summarize everything, we believe that this will be a good addition, good fit in the neighborhood, and it will add value and promote and improve the growth of the neighborhood and plus the tax base. I appreciate your consideration for the approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I don't believe, I may be mistaken, did you state your name at the beginning?
Yes, David Nikui.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you, sir, just
Thank
in
you.
case. Any questions from council or comments? Okay, may I have a motion to close? Motion by Councilman Miranda, second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? What is the pleasure of council? Councilman Cohen.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny this application, and I'm going to base that on a couple of different policies, both from the comprehensive plan and from the land development code. Land use policy 9.1.2, which is to encourage sensitive design and site planning in urban neighborhoods that mitigates the scale of larger buildings through careful use of building massing, setbacks, facade articulation, fenestration, varied parapets and roof planes, and pedestrian scaled architectural detail. definitely, in my view, excessive setback waivers that would not be available unless it was under the PD. I would also say that the size and scale of the proposed development is out of character with the residential neighborhood. Land Use Policy 9.3.8, it is the intent of the city that new residential redevelopment projects shall be minimally disruptive to adjacent areas. To achieve this, the city shall assess the potential positive and negative impacts of residential development projects on the physical development pattern and the character of the surrounding area and require mitigation of negative off-site impacts. Section 27-136, Item 6 of the Tampa Municipal Code says that rezoning should promote and encourage development where appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounding impacted neighborhoods, built environment, and existing geography. We've heard substantive and competent evidence tonight that the proposed development is not appropriate in location, character, and compatibility with the surrounded impacting neighborhood as well as the directly impacted surrounding houses. And then finally, I would just mention that the waiver, which is to contribute to the trust fund for mitigation, doesn't point out that actually it's the effective removal of every single tree on the property.
If I could, Chair, we have a motion and a second. Could I add to that land use objective 9.3? The development is not compatible, or the redevelopment is not compatible to sustain the stable neighborhoods and ensure the social and economic health of the city, and land use policy 9.3.5, which generally the location of single-family attached housing units shall be limited to the periphery of established single-family detached neighborhoods.
I would accept that.
Thank you, Chair.
Addition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a motion by Councilman Cohen, a second by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion to deny carried with Reddick being absent.
Thank you very much. Now, I am told that there needs to be a 5-minute break because the good folks at TV, they need to switch some technology over. So we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you. Onward now to item